Chapter 11:28. Rumble, a strong spatial rhythm leaked out, and a luxurious and dazzling array door slowly rotated between the two trees. It was as if the array door had been opened, and a round door that glowed with a mysterious light appeared in front of them. A thin layer of light floated in front of the array door, like a flowing curtain of water. Xiao Xiaowan's eyes lit up and she was a little surprised. "You're so mysterious and well hidden. What's in it?" The second elder nodded slightly and answered, "This is the place with the most abundant spiritual energy in the entire Ganshi mountain range. It's the hub where spiritual energy converges, and where thousands of meridians gather. And then? What's inside?" Xiao Xiaowan did not care about the geographical location at all. She only wanted to know what the second elder would give her as a reward. The second elder looked up and replied cautiously, "The earthly soul-quenching spring, what's that?" Xiao Xiaowan was still confused. Quite a bit of astonishment surged onto Chu Hen and Han Ichuan's faces. The earthly soul-heart-quenching spring, it is the essence of the earth spirit vein. It is said that this kind of spirit spring requires 3,000 to 4,000 years to gradually accumulate and form. It contains an extremely pure and vigorous energy. Just a single drop of the spring liquid is enough to cleanse an ordinary person's muscles and marrow, and have the miraculous effect of being reborn, Han Ichuan said, and then a look of surprise appeared on his face. No wonder the spiritual energy in this place is so abundant. It turns out that there's such a rare thing as the earthly soul-quenching spring here. The second elder nodded approvingly at Han Ichuan's explanation. He turned to Xiao Xiaowan and said, "The spiritual liquid in the butterfly transformation pond is made from the spring liquid of the earthly soul-quenching spring. You should have felt how special and extraordinary the energy in the pond is." Xiao Xiaowan raised her eyelids and replied, "Although it's not a good thing, it's still passable." The second elder's eyes twitched slightly. This girl's words can really piss people off. If this wasn't a good thing, then there weren't many things in the world that could be called treasures. Ignoring Xiao Xiaowan, the second elder turned to Chu Hen and Han Ichuan and said, "This is a token of my appreciation. I hope the two of you won't reject it. What's there to decline? You two, hurry up and go in." Before Chu Hen and Han Ichuan could reply, Xiao Xiaowan pushed them out. The two of them looked at each other, shook their heads and smiled helplessly. "All right." Chu Hen let out a sigh of relief. He looked at the second elder and said, "Thank you for your gift, elder. I won't stand on ceremony then." The second elder nodded. Shortly after, Chu Hen and Han Ichuan walked towards the formation door one after another. The water curtain-like formation door was overflowing with colorful lights and runes. Chu Hen walked towards the water curtain-like formation door. His eyes darkened and a trace of determination flashed across his eyes. Then, he leaped into the formation door. Buzz, circles of ripples appeared inside the formation door. Chu Hen seemed to have shuttled into another plane of space and instantly disappeared before their eyes. Compared to Chu Hen's determination, Han Ichuan seemed to be slightly hesitant. He walked to the front of the formation door, stretched out his hand and clenched it into a fist. "What's wrong?" Xiao Xiaowan asked from behind. Then, Han Ichuan let out a long sigh as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He suddenly turned around with a determined look on his face. He looked at the second elder and said in a sincere tone, "I don't want this gift of thanks, oh?" The second elder was stunned. Xiao Xiaowan was a little anxious. "Why? Are you stupid?" The corner of Han Ichuan's mouth raised into a smile. "Besides, let's discuss something else." Hua! A dazzling white light flashed in front of him. Chu Hen seemed to have passed through two parallel spaces and appeared in another world in the next second. In front of him was a natural and vast cave abode. The surrounding rocks were jagged and strange. It was like a stalactite cave in the depths of the mountains and rivers. In the middle of the cave abode, there was a pool that was emitting a dense mist. Rich immortal qi rose and surrounded the pool, like a slender beauty dancing in the wind. Through the dense spiritual mist, the water in the pool could be vaguely seen to be golden in color, as if it was mixed with sparkling powder. Chu Hen was secretly shocked. Such pure power! Such a large spirit spring! I'm afraid it has been accumulated for tens of thousands of years. His eyes flashed. Without any hesitation, Chu Hen jumped down and directly into the spirit spring. Bang! Accompanied by a splash, Chu Hen immediately fell into the spirit spring. A cool and refreshing aura surged over like an undercurrent. The space under the spirit spring was much larger than he imagined. As far as the eye could see, it was impossible to see the end of it. Under the deep and dark spirit spring, every drop of spirit spring was filled with the purest and most vigorous power. When Chu Hen fell into the legendary Jasper celestial pond, he felt an indescribable sense of comfort. His entire body began to relax, and all the major meridians in his body opened up. Hua! In an instant, a vast and mighty spirit spring surged from all directions. Chu Hen's body was like a dry sponge, endlessly accepting this vast and pure power that was as vast as the sea. Boundless power invaded every inch of his flesh and blood, every section of his muscles and bones. Chu Hen only felt that every meridian was moving under the spirit spring. Countless golden light patterns converged into his body from all directions. Beams of flowing light were like golden kelp and seaweed intertwining to form a halo around him. Like a whale sucking in water, Chu Hen continuously released a powerful suction force, absorbing all the surging spirit spring into his true essence, Violet Palace. Like an explosive chain reaction, the power of the earth's soul-quenching spring continuously cleansed and strengthened Chu Hen's body. At the same time, the other powers that had accumulated in his body also became incomparably restless. Chu Hen controlled the energy in his body and continuously sank into the dark and deep spirit spring. As time passed, Chu Hen completely entered a state of selflessness. Boundless spirit spring surged into his body, and his true essence, Violet Palace, gradually began to shake. It was like welcoming a ferocious flood that had not been seen in 10,000 years. The stable dam was instantly broken, and an unparalleled aura began to brew and grow. The huge spirit spring caused a violent tremor. The tremor spread out, spreading to the entire ancestral butterfly race's territory. What's happening? Why is the ground shaking? I don't know. The ancestral butterfly race members who sensed the abnormality looked around in confusion. Not far from the valley, Han Ichuan and Xiao Shaowan raised their heads to look at the sky behind them. Chapter 11:29. At the bottom of the deep and dark pool, beams of light flashed in the darkness like tassels. Everything was quiet and calm. Only the undercurrent at the bottom of the pool was still faintly moving. Chu Hen quietly floated in the depths of the spiritual pool. His eyes were closed, and there was no aura. He could not sense anything at all. A golden halo enveloped his body. The halo was as thin as a cicada's wings, like a layer of bubbles. In the dark environment of the water, it was like a halo of stars, gorgeous and beautiful. At this moment, the power of the spiritual spring that Chu Hen had absorbed gradually reached a saturation state. The surrounding waters became increasingly dark and quiet. Chu Hen, who was enveloped by the halo, was like a fish in the deep water, constantly sinking, constantly falling into the endless abyss. After an unknown period of time, Chu Hen completely merged into the darkness. Only the halo of light swayed with a faint soft light. The entire world became silent and empty. Like a dream, Chu Hen was like a creature swallowed by a black nightmare. His body gradually dimmed. And in the instant that he was completely submerged by the darkness, a dazzling light suddenly erupted from within Chu Hen's body. Hua! The all-around dazzling brilliance was like the bright moon and stars. Tens of thousands of light beams formed a beautiful reflection underwater. Then, an incomparably powerful aura suddenly stacked up like the undercurrent in the deep water. With Chu Hen as the center point, it spread out in all directions. True Yuan Zifu World. At this very moment, Chu Hen's Zifu World had already undergone a tremendous change that turned the world upside down. Vast mountains and rivers stretched as far as the eye could see. Peaks rose and fell, and spiritual qi was abundant. In the sky, there was a chaotic universe that had not yet broken. But now, the sun and moon rotated, and the stars could be seen. It was clearly just a cultivator's inner palace, but it was like a part of the boundless universe. The rivers formed by the convergence of true Yuan were like the sea, majestic and majestic. Right now, the amount of true origin energy that he could mobilize had impressively reached an incomparably large value. Compared to the previous 9th level of the Sky Profound Realm, such dense true origin energy was truly many times stronger. On the other hand, in the sky above the True Essence River that was vast like an ocean, a spiritual platform floated in the air. An illusory figure was sitting on the platform. The shadow was almost transparent, and its appearance and shape were exactly the same as Chu Hen's. The phantom quietly sat on top of the spiritual platform, its eyes closed. Every time it breathed, it was able to cause the qi flow within the Zifu of the true essence to fluctuate. Saint's Soul, the initial stage of the Saint's Soul, the immemorial realm. At the profound Earth realm, the Purple Palace would be born, and it would be able to store the spirits of all living things on Earth. At the profound Sky realm, the Violet Palace realm was completed, and one could absorb the power of the sun, moon, and stars. When the spiritual essence of all living things in the world was fully absorbed and reached its peak, with the essence of the mountains, rivers, sun, and moon, the Purple Mansion Saint's Soul could be formed with the rise of the Saint's Soul, the everlasting creation. From then on, he would never perish, stepping into the realm of immortality. Feeling the Purple Mansion Soul that was connected to his mind, Chu Hen's heart was filled with excitement. This was the symbol of an immemorial realm expert. With this Purple Mansion Saint's Soul, he could continuously create true essence energy. In the future, his true essence energy could be said to be inexhaustible. Perceiving his Zifu world, which had undergone a huge change compared to when he was at the Sky Profound Realm, Chu Hen's cultivation and mental state had both risen to a whole new level. Within the Violet Palace realm, one could peer into the 3,000 great realms. The power of all living things in the world, the radiance of the sun, moon, and stars, were shared and merged into one. Immediately, Chu Hen's divine sense swept towards the other side of the Violet Palace realm. In the sky above the 9 heavens was a corner of the primal chaos. A pair of huge purple eyes, like those of an ancient demon god, overlooked the world, full of a mysterious and demonic aura. Below those purple eyes, beams of light in the shape of chains enveloped a demonic beast with colorful wings that looked like a divine phoenix. "It's been so long, and it still hasn't woken up?" Chu Hen muttered to himself. The saintly winged heavenly flame bird was still in a deep sleep. Its long and narrow eyes were tightly shut, and the colorful light emitted from its body flickered. The power of the demon eyes continuously flowed into its body. The battle at the Thunder Saint Palace. It was still fresh in his mind. If not for the other party, perhaps Chu Hen would have already fallen into the hands of the heretic god. Chu Hen felt gratitude and guilt towards the saintly winged heavenly flame bird. Directly opposite the purple demon eyes, in the chaotic void, was a huge black figure that emitted a demonic aura that shook the heavens. It had not even reached the mystic body realm. This was the result of the martial ancestor realm examination. Even so, Chu Hen did not feel that his second bloodline boundary would be weaker than any other bloodline boundary of the sacred body. One day, he would definitely unravel the mysterious veil behind this powerful power. As his cultivation base increased, Chu Hen could more clearly understand any kind of power that he controlled. Other than that, in Chu Hen's True Essence Violet Palace, there were 2 other items that took up a lot of space. One was the shard of the great Tao God Stone. He had obtained the shard of the great Tao God stone in the ancient desolate heaven domain. Previously, young Valley Master Shintu Etienne had used this stone to evolve Yi Yao's bloodline boundary from the Yin-Yang mystic body to the Tai Chi sacred body. It was a supreme divine item created by a human expert in the ancient era. The great Tao God stone was undoubtedly very mysterious. The other item was the huge dragon skeleton that was thousands of feet long. It had also been obtained in the ancient desolate heaven domain. At that time, Chu Hen had been chased by the Thunder Saint Palace genius Lei Jixin and the others all the way to the land of the buried dragon. He had accidentally triggered the seal and been sucked into the place where the giant dragon was sealed. It was also at that time that Chu Hen had been forced to activate the Qitian token and obtain the heretic god's killing power. After breaking through the seal of the land of the buried dragon, Chu Hen had taken the dragon skeleton under the saintly winged heavenly flame bird's request. After so much time had passed, apart from taking up space, it had no other use. It's clearly just a skeleton. What's the use of it? Chu Hen muttered to himself. The huge dragon skeleton maintained its upright posture in Chu Hen's true essence Violet Mansion world. Although it was just a dragon skeleton, it still emanated the intimidating aura of a supreme race. Every inch of the skeleton was as tough as steel. Its bone claws were still sharp, and its fangs were still fierce. Although its flesh and blood had already been reduced to dust, its aura was still undying. Whiz! Suddenly, a ball of red, fiery light appeared in the dragon's empty eye sockets. A wisp of light energy was quietly released without any warning. What's that? Chu Hen's heart trembled. But in the next instant, the red flames in the dragon's eye sockets were extinguished, and the deep eye sockets emanated an aura of death. Just like after Chu Hen's realm increased, his perception of every inch of the purple palace of Zhen Yuan was incomparably clear. In that fleeting moment just now, he had clearly sensed the aura emanating from the dragon's skeleton. This was no coincidence. Nor was it a misconception. Chapter 1130. Could it be that it still has a shred of its soul? This sudden thought caused Chu Hen's mind to tremble uncontrollably. Dragon, the world's most ancient race. It had long surpassed the category of demonic beasts and was revered as a godlike existence by the world. It was a divine beast with a supreme bloodline. The so-called dragon burial ground had always sealed it in the ancient baron's heaven realm. If not for Chu Hen, the intruder, who had rashly entered, the dragon skeleton would still be trapped inside. Could there still be a shred of its soul that had not completely dissipated in the dragon skeleton that had been brought out? This bold thought made Chu Hen's mind restless. After a moment of serious consideration, Chu Hen's mind moved. The vast true essence in his purple palace rose into the air like a torrent. A mighty stream of true essence gushed towards the dragon skeleton like a fountain. In an instant, an endless amount of true origin energy completely enveloped him. Then, something amazing happened. Chu Hen could clearly feel that the dragon skeleton was absorbing the true Yuan spiritual power. With this discovery, Chu Hen was overjoyed at the unexpected turn of events. If it was just a skeleton without any signs of life, it would not be able to absorb external spiritual energy. His guess that the soul still existed was further verified. Immediately, a steady stream of true inner force flowed into the dragon skeleton from all directions. The dragon skeleton did not reject this energy. It absorbed Chu Hen's true essence. However, Chu Hen soon discovered that the dragon skeleton was like a sponge that could not be fed enough. After continuously using up almost half of its true essence, there was still no change in the dragon skeleton. There was still no sign of life recovering. Chu Hen shook his head. He immediately stopped this endless output. Although he had reached the ancient eternal realm and condensed a purple palace saint soul, he could use his true essence freely, but if he used up all his true essence without holding back, even the strongest saint's soul would become weak. I can only take it slow, Chu Hen thought to himself. Immediately, He separated a portion of true essence and gave it to the dragon's skeleton. This portion of power was given to the dragon bone, and it wouldn't affect its own state. After accumulating for a long time, he would see the reaction of the dragon's skeleton. Subsequently, Chu Hen withdrew his spiritual consciousness from the true essence Zifu. At the bottom of the quiet and dark spiritual pool, Chu Hen suddenly opened his eyes. 2 bright rays of light shot out from his eyes. Subsequently, with a bang, water splashed everywhere and Qi billowed. A young figure with an extraordinary aura flashed onto the shore. Within the valley shrouded in immortal mist. Under 2 towering 1,000-year-old trees. A burst of illusory light and shadow floated in the air. It was like a portal that passed through 2 planes of space. A beam of light and shadow flickered, and Chu Hen immediately flashed out of the portal. They had just come out. A familiar, crisp female voice came from the entrance of the valley. Chu Hen, over here. Chu Hen's eyes lit up as he saw a few familiar figures walking towards him. Qiao Shaowan took the lead and trotted in front. Han Ichuan, second elder, Yi Lian, and several other guards of the ancestral butterfly clan followed behind. The old man said that you would come out today, so we came. How was it? Did that heart-quenching liquid have any effect? Qiao Shaowan asked curiously. You're asking too much. Look at the change in his aura, you can tell that he has broken through to the ancient eternal realm. Han Ichuan's hearty laughter came from behind. Compared to before, the aura that Chu Hen revealed was a complete leap in nature. His eyes were like stars, his brows were proud, and there was an invisible pressure in his every move. Really? Qiao Xiaowan's eyes flashed. Ancient eternal realm. Chu Hen smiled slightly, nodded, and said, Yes, ancient eternal realm 3rd stage. What? 3rd stage? The 2 were shocked. He actually jumped 3 stages in a row. Even second elder, Yi Lian, and the others showed a look of astonishment. He really is a monster. Han Ichuan laughed and scolded. Chu Hen sniffed and smiled. Chu Hen was not surprised at all that he jumped 3 stages in a row. After all, when he was in the Eastern Victory State, because of the continuous accumulation of Qi Tianling's killing power, Chu Hen's cultivation had always been in a self-suppressed state. When he left the Eastern continent, in order to avoid the problem of an unstable foundation due to the rapid increase in his cultivation level, Chu Hen deliberately suppressed his cultivation level to the 7th stage of the profound heaven realm. Moreover, when he encountered the immortal Devil Tomb, he accidentally obtained the power inheritance of the Devil Clan's almighty Yama King. At that time, his cultivation level increased to the peak of the 9th stage of the profound heaven realm. Most of the Yama King's power was still accumulated in his body. But this time, the magical effect of the heart-quenching liquid was to release all the suppressed power in Chu Hen's body. While increasing his cultivation level, it strengthened the stability of his foundation. So it was not strange that he jumped 3 stages in a row. Why didn't you change at all? Chu Hen looked at Han Ichuan with a puzzled expression. That? Han Ichuan smiled embarrassedly. I didn't go in with you. Oh? Why? Chu Hen was stunned. Han Ichuan looked back at Qiao Shaowan and said with a smile, we'll talk about it later. Chu Hen was even more confused. Qiao Shaowan said immediately, Oh yes, you don't have much time left. You have to hurry to the martial sect. Don't have much time left? How long have I been in there? More than 10 days. More than 10 days? Hearing Qiao Shaowan's words, Chu Hen was shocked. In that case, there were only about 20 days left before the end of the martial sect assessment. Then I really have to hurry. Chu Hen looked at second elder and the rest. Thank you for your gift, senior. This junior will remember it and will definitely repay it in the future. Second elder smiled warmly. I've already said it before. This is what you deserve. There's no need to return the courtesy. Also, congratulations on breaking through to the ancient eternal realm. Chu Hen nodded solemnly. Thank you. Then, he looked at Qiao Shaowan. Then we'll be leaving. Han Ichuan, who was at the side, quickly answered, "It's not we, it's you alone." Alone? Chu Hen was stunned for a moment. Then, he raised his eyebrows. "You're staying?" "Yes." Han Ichuan nodded his head in affirmation. He looked at Xiao Shaowan and smiled. "I've thought about it for a long time. It seems like I don't have any expectations for the martial sect, so I'll stay here for now." Then, he looked at Chu Hen. "Second Elder has agreed for me to stay." Realization dawned on him. No wonder Han Ichuan did not choose the Earth Soul heart-quenching spring. So he was using this as a condition to stay in the ancestral butterfly clan. More accurately, he was staying by Xiao Xiaowan's side. Chu Hen laughed. He shook his head. Then, he nodded. "All right. Then I'll go back alone." Han Ichuan raised his hand and punched him in the shoulder. "I say, don't blame me for forgetting my brother." "That's hard to say," Chu Hen pretended to say. "I knew you'd be so petty. So, I've prepared some compensation for you." After saying that, Han Ichuan raised his hand and flipped it over. A plant flickering with a silver radiance fell into his palm. "This is?" Chu Hen's eyes lit up. The plant was about 30 centimeters tall. Its entire body shone with a fluorescent light. Its leaves were circular like the crescent moon on the first day of each month. Crescent bone. "That's right." Han Ichuan raised his hand and passed the plant in his hand to the other party. The crazy girl and I searched for a few days and turned over more than half of the Kunchi mountain range to find this crescent bone. In this way you can directly report to the martial sect. Chu Hen carefully took the crescent bone into his hand. "All right. Since you helped me complete the mission, I'll forgive you too." Han Ichuan laughed dryly. Xiao Shaowan pouted. "Then," she said, "tell Xiao Yao that I'll look for her in the future. Don't let her miss me too much." "She will." After a complicated farewell, Chu Hen left the ancestral butterfly clan's territory under everyone's gaze. Han Ichuan and Xiao Shaowan walked him out of the exit. He turned back to look at the two figures standing on the peak of the mountain range. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth raised into a shallow arc. For Han Ichuan, the martial sect might be a holy place for cultivation. But it was not a place he looked forward to. He was afraid that once he turned around, it might be a lifetime. In everyone's eyes, Xiao Shaowan, the crazy girl in his heart. Crossing over the lofty mountains and precipitous ridges, Chu Hen returned to the route he came from. Soon, the Ganchi mountain range, which was like spring all year round, was left far behind. After passing through a thick gray miasma cloud area, Chu Hen entered a gloomy, dark, and quiet world with dark clouds covering the sky. A hazy gray mist pervaded the sky. The sunlight did not reveal anything. It was dead silent everywhere. Valleys, hills, jungles, canyons, everything was silent and illusory. However, in this deathly silent mountain range, there were countless evil monsters that were rotting on the ground. It was different from the way he came. Only Chu Hen was on his way back. Looking at the monsters that exuded a decaying aura in the mountain range below, Chu Hen's mood did not change much. Except that the dead silent atmosphere was a little depressing, he did not feel too much pressure. Without waking up any monsters, Chu Hen arrived at the center of the quiet ridge. There were a large number of decaying monsters here. There were headless giant corpses, half-rotten ferocious beasts, big birds and birds with only white bones left, and terrifying creatures hidden in the darkness. When he arrived at the center of the mountain ridge, Chu Hen suddenly stopped in his tracks. His eyes darkened, and two cold lights shot out like sharp swords. Chapter 11:31. "Come out!" The ice-cold voice was as heavy as thunder in the silent mountain ridge. The air trembled. In an instant, the sleeping monsters in the mountain ridge below opened their crimson eyes one after another, exuding a thick aura of death. However, Chu Hen still turned a blind eye to them and stood in the distance. It was as if he didn't see these decaying creatures that were about to wake up. Then, his eyes turned cold, and he raised his palm downward. A vigorous true essence light beam suddenly burst out from his palm, like the aurora sword light that pierced through the sky. Bang! It hit a steep mountain wall. An incomparably fierce aura of destruction surged in all directions, sweeping across the whole area with a crushing momentum. While the violent impact collapsed the cliff, it also blasted more than a dozen monsters and decaying corpses around it into pieces. The strong shock awakened all the monsters inside and outside the mountain ridge. Under the chaotic airwaves, a black shadow with a cold aura suddenly flashed out from the pile of rocks. "Hey, I've been discovered!" Along with the strange laughter of ridicule, the mountain ridges below suddenly broke apart layer by layer. Huge rocks were lifted into the air, and soil was sent flying. One after another, sturdy iron chains that flickered with a gloomy luster, like a horned dragon breaking out of the ground, swept towards the blue dome of heaven. With the momentum of an iron chain crossing a river, it completely sealed off all four of Chu Hen's paths. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, 5 or 6 figures with a cold aura flew out from the mountain ridge below one after another. Each of them held a cold weapon in their hands, and they were covered in black clothes. They also wore black masks on their faces, revealing only the part above their eyes. Hua! The vortex between heaven and earth flowed even more rapidly and fiercely. One after another, sturdy chains interweaved in the air, as if a huge birdcage had surrounded Chu Hen in the center. Hee, if I were you, I would definitely pretend not to know. You can't talk in the silent ridge, of course, except for us. The complacent laughter was unbridled. The evil monsters that had awakened showed their ferocious faces, but they were all focused on Chu Hen. The men in black actually turned a blind eye to these people. The sharp coldness was like the erosion of a blade. Chu Hen coldly glanced at the left rear position. There, a black-clothed man with eyes as sharp as an eagle's was holding a bow in his hand. The bowstring was drawn into a full moon, and an arrow with threads of black air swirling around it was already knocked between his fingers. Long-range shooting, close-range control. It was obvious that these people had come prepared. It was definitely not as simple as robbing and killing someone on the way. "You've been waiting for a long time, haven't you?" Chu Hen said calmly. The last time he left Silent Ridge to kill the ancient corpses in the lake, Chu Hen was chased to the edge of Ganchi mountain range by a group of carrion monsters. Just as he was about to walk out of the border of Silent Ridge, a cold arrow was shot out. At that moment, Chu Hen sensed the human true inner force fluctuations emanating from the arrow. However, he didn't think too much about it at that time. Now that he saw the assassination archer behind him, Chu Hen couldn't help but think about what had happened before. Roar! Woo! A large number of carrion monsters emitted a monstrous, deathly aura. One by one, rotten corpses crawled out of the ground like a black wave, gathering from all directions. At the same time, several black-clothed men also released a gray aura. This gray aura was very similar to the deathly aura of the monsters. Chu Hen secretly thought that these people must have brought treasures to confuse the carrion monsters, so they wouldn't become the evil targets. "You really made us wait for a long time." A black-clothed man sneered coldly. "Hey, I almost gave up, but I didn't expect you to come to me again." Chu Hen raised his handsome eyebrows slightly, and asked with great interest, "May I know why you're looking for me?" "Someone who is about to die. There's no harm in telling you. Someone is very interested in you, and he ordered us to bring you back." "Interested in me? What is it?" He really wants to know how you survived in the tomb of the immortal and devil, the secrets you have hidden, and the heart of Xian Sha godly thunder, hum." Along with the voice, the black chains that traversed the void emitted an astonishing rhythmic aura. Luxurious, gorgeous, and complicated runes flickered and swayed on the chains. A powerful pressure came from all directions. Looking at the strange runes flashing on the chains, Chu Hen's mind suddenly flashed with the familiar scene he saw in the immortal and devil tomb. "It seems that I know who sent you here." "Oh?" Everyone was startled. Looking at Chu Hen's indifferent and calm face, they couldn't help but feel a sense of uneasiness. In the face of such a deadly situation, the other party was actually so calm, which was really worrying. "Don't talk nonsense with him, kill him," one of the black-clothed men shouted sternly. In an instant, a piercingly cold, murderous intent exploded from everyone's body. The black iron chains surrounding Chu Hen blossomed with dense light patterns. The light patterns rose like black flames, then quickly converged and shrunk. Waves of murderous intent surged, and a full-scale siege was launched. At the same time, the carrion monsters on the mountain below also rushed in from all directions. The mighty aura of death was like a raging tsunami, crushing towards Chu Hen's position. It was a deadly situation, whether it was the black-clothed men or the carrion monsters. In their opinion, Chu Hen had no chance of surviving. However, in the face of the whistling attack from all directions, the corners of Chu Hen's mouth raised in a contemptuous arc, the tomb of the immortal and devil. "The reason I'm alive is because I've obtained the power of Yama King," a frivolous voice sounded faintly. When the countless figures with imposing auras charged in front of him, traces of chilling light surged within Chu Hen's pupils. He raised both of his hands and two balls of dark gray light quietly rose from his palms. "Yama King, Heart of Thorns," an earth-shaking voice reverberated in the sky. Boom! The overlapping heavy momentum set off a shocking wave. Suddenly, a monstrous and majestic momentum broke out like a flash flood. What? The hearts of the black-clothed men trembled. Crack! In an instant, the mountains below, the rock walls, and the ground suddenly burst open with countless crimson light patterns. The light patterns were like blood, dark and cold. It was like the pattern of the core of a rock. Then, incomparably huge vines suddenly drilled out of the ground. Thousands of vines and roots, magnificent and terrifying, like countless ghost tentacles from hell, instantly covered the entire mountain range. That is, the pupils of the black-clothed men shrank to the extreme, and they all turned pale with fright. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. No one had any reaction. All the vines and roots rushed up to the sky, like a flying python, with the momentum of piercing through the earth, attacking the sky. Bang, bang, bang. The sturdy and heavy vines and roots firmly swept over the group of men in black and the horde of zombies. The violent impact caused countless monsters and zombies to explode into pieces. Like countless octopus tentacles, they intertwined and entangled. Bang! With a series of explosive sounds, the dark iron chains around Chu Hen were all broken. Ah! No! Horrified voices spread to the sky. The dense thorny vines quickly wrapped around the people, like man-eating plants, and directly twisted them into clouds of blood mist. All the carrion monsters that came forward were also crushed by the thorny vines. Meanwhile, Chu Hen's momentum was monstrous, like a demon lord who controlled this world. The black-clothed archer, the only long-range assassin, was already scared out of his wits. Looking at the thorny vines that covered the mountains and rivers, his eyes were filled with infinite fear. The trembling made him lose the ability to escape. He watched helplessly as Chu Hen, who exuded a gloomy aura, like a demon god, came over. His trembling hands could no longer pull the bowstring. Don't kill me. I'll tell you who sent us. No need." A cold voice spat out from Chu Hen's mouth. Bang! As his voice fell, an eye-catching rain of blood exploded in the void. Everything returned to nothingness in an instant. Only one person ruled the world. Chapter 1132. The green mountains formed ridges and the peaks pierced through the clouds. The mountains shrouded in divine mist had an extraordinary charm, as if the earth was connected to the sky. Countless mountains and rivers of various sizes seemed to be connected to the galaxy. The vast mountain gate was majestic. The mountains were continuous, and the clouds were high. Being here, a wave of awe-inspiring righteousness assaulted one's face. At the foot of the martial ancestor mountain, a wide and majestic stairway extended from the peak to the foot of the mountain. The hierarchy of the path was clearly defined, and there was a platform built at regular intervals. On both sides of the platform, there were either stone tablets or pavilions. At this moment, Chu Hen had already stepped onto the stairway. His steps were steady and powerful as he walked towards the peak with his back straight. Other than Chu Hen, there were other people scattered around the step. Everyone's footsteps were especially brisk and vigorous, as if they couldn't wait any longer. They hurriedly walked past Chu Hen. "Hurry up, we should be the last batch." Don't fill up Dongxian Peak. I'm here for it. There's no hope for Dongxian Peak. We came too late, so it's probably full. It'll be fine as long as we don't get assigned to Beichen Peak. That's right, I think so too. Hurry up, today is the last day of the assessment. There must be a lot of people. Looking at the backs of the people walking in a hurry, Chu Hen instinctively quickened his pace. Even though he had other motives for coming to the martial ancestor, he was still somewhat expectant. A moment later, Chu Hen reached the peak of the mountain gate. What appeared before him was a majestic scene that was as vast as the universe. Looking from afar, the peaks of the Spirit Mountain inside and outside the Martial Ancestor Mountain were magnificent. Majestic and imposing buildings were situated between the peaks. Among them, there were even magnificent buildings that floated in the vast void, defying gravity. From afar, it was like the legendary immortal palaces and jade pavilions. It was very awe-inspiring. Seeing the Martial Ancestor Mountain for the first time, Chu Hen could not help but have a visual impact. Looking at the vast plaza in front of him and the iron chain bridge connecting the various mountain ranges, Chu Hen actually did not know where he should go next. A newcomer? At this moment, a small figure dressed neatly suddenly appeared in front of Chu Hen. "Haha, my name is Wu Mian. I'm in charge of receiving the newcomers." Just as Chu Hen was worrying about where he should go to report, a person suddenly appeared. Chu Hen was a little surprised. "My name is Chu Hen. Oh, junior brother Chu Hen, come, I'll bring you to report, hee." The man was very enthusiastic. He even grabbed Chu Hen's wrist and walked forward. "I'm in charge of receiving new disciples every year. You can follow me without worry. By the way, Chu Hen, what's your martial talent level? What was the limit of the bloodline? Seeing that your aura is so steady and restrained, you should be at the 5th or 6th level of the Sky Profound Realm, right?" Before he could even say a few words, the other party threw out a series of questions. Chu Hen could not help but shake his head and shook off the other party's hand. "I can walk by myself." Sorry, I'm a little talkative. But it's okay even if you're not at the 5th level of the Sky Profound Realm. If you have any problems in the Martial Ancestor Mountain, as your senior brother, I'll definitely help you. Wu Mian patted his chest and had an expression that said, "Your problem is my problem." Chu Hen slightly furrowed his brows. What kind of play was this? The other party was a little too enthusiastic. Walking past the long iron chain bridge, the two sides of the steep peaks were surrounded by spiritual energy. Under Wu Mian's guidance, Chu Hen came to a wide square. There were many people gathered in the square. Men and women were in their prime, exuding youthful exuberance. Some were scattered, some were in groups. "Junior brother Chu Hen, this way. I'll bring you to submit the mission order." Wu Mian directly led Chu Hen across the square and came in front of a pavilion. A few new disciples walked out in groups. Chu Hen casually glanced at them. They were the new disciples who had walked in front of him on the steps of the sect. Dongxian Peak is really full. Luckily, South Spirit Peak still has a few spots. It's a disadvantage to be late. Stop complaining. It's good enough that you're able to enter the Martial Ancestor Mountain. Who knows if the days ahead will be hell or heaven? Junior brother Chu Hen, come in quickly. There's no one here. Wu Mian giggled as he led Chu Hen in. The interior of the pavilion was rather simple. There was a long counter and a few simple tea chairs. Behind the counter stood a young disciple and an old man with a white beard. The young man tidied up the items on the counter while glancing sideways at Wu Mian. Hee, second brother Wu, you've tricked another new junior brother? F***CKU. Wu Mian glared at him before walking to the counter and shouting at the old man, Elder Song, there's a new disciple submitting a mission. The old man lifted his eyelids lazily and replied calmly, Bring up the mission token. Chu Hen nodded his head. Shortly after, he placed a black badge on the counter. The old man merely glanced at it and did not even activate it with his true yuan. He said directly, It's the mission from the forest sacrifice forest. Has it been completed? Hey, Elder Song, aren't you looking down on us? Wu Mian interrupted. If we didn't complete the mission, would we be able to come? Chu Hen nodded slightly and flipped his hand. A plant with crescent-shaped leaves appeared in Chu Hen's palm. It was glowing with starlight. Look, Wu Mian said proudly. At the same time, Chu Hen gently placed the crescent bone on the counter. The young man behind the counter shook his head and smiled. Congratulations, as he spoke. He took out a jade token from behind. The token was smooth and round with beautiful patterns engraved on its edges. In the middle was the word Marshal. The back was as smooth as a mirror. Choose the Peak Courtyard. The young man smiled gently. Wu Mian's small eyes slanted as he hurriedly said, Of course I'll choose the North Star Peak Courtyard. Peak Courtyard? Chu Hen's face showed some confusion. Looks like second brother Wu hasn't told you yet. The young man's smile became even weirder. Tell me what? Chu Hen asked. I knew this guy was up to no good. He's lying to everyone he sees. F***CK off. Who's lying to everyone they see? Wu Mian scolded and rubbed his nose awkwardly. Junior brother Chu Hen, it's like this. To make it easier for us to manage our disciples, our martial sect has divided the sect into 4 peak courtyards. Their East Profound Peak Courtyard, South Spirit Peak Courtyard, West Sky Peak Courtyard, and our North Star Peak Courtyard. As for me, actually, I just hope that more new disciples will join our North Star Peak Courtyard. I really don't have any other intentions. Looking at the other party's uneasy explanation, Chu Hen nodded in understanding. However, at this moment, a cold and decisive voice entered everyone's ears. Wait, you're not qualified to become our sect's disciple, what? Several people's gazes simultaneously turned to Elder Song, who had an old-fashioned look on his face. The latter pointed at the crescent bone on the counter. Chapter 1133. This crescent bone was not picked from the forest sacrifice jungle. So, you're not qualified to become a disciple of our sect. Seeing that the token of a martial sect disciple was about to be in his hands, Elder Song's words caused the atmosphere in the loft to fall into a state of shock. No way? Are you kidding me? Elder. Wu Mian was the first to question him. Elder Song pointed at the crescent bone on the counter. If it's a crescent bone from the forest sacrifice jungle, it would contain a dark night aura and a trace of cold fiendish aura lingering around it. But this crescent bone has more spiritual aura and less dark aura, or even none. It's absolutely impossible for it to have come from the forest sacrifice jungle. The young man behind the counter and Wu Mian were puzzled by Elder Song's rebuke. The latter looked at Chu Hen and waited for him to explain. However, Chu Hen did not deny it and nodded. This crescent bone is indeed not from the forest sacrifice jungle. The crescent bone in front of him was found with the help of Han Ichuan and Qiao Shaowan in the Kunchi Mountains. Because he had spent a lot of time with the ancestral butterfly clan, Han Ichuan had found the crescent bone on his behalf. However, he did not expect that Elder Song would see the problem at a glance and use this as a reason to deny Chu Hen's mission success. Seeing that Chu Hen did not defend himself, Wu Mian was suddenly discouraged. He spread his hands and said, The mission token did not specify that the mission must be completed in the forest sacrifice jungle, right? Elder, it's very embarrassing for you to make things difficult for a new junior brother. Elder Song snorted coldly and said disdainfully, "The mission token did not specify the location, but this mission was issued in the Deep Star Prefecture. In the Deep Star Prefecture, only near the forest sacrifice jungle can there be a crescent bone. As a martial sect disciple, if he can't even discern this, what use is he to our sect?" "Oh my God, I'm going crazy." Wu Mian scratched his head and tried hard to calm himself down. "I say, Elder Song, this person is a new person, why are you so serious? Isn't it a crescent bone? What difference did it make if it was from the forest sacrifice forest or not? When the mission was issued, there was no restriction on the scope of the mission. This was enough to show that they just needed to bring the crescent bone back. Even if they picked it up on the street, it was also because they were lucky, right? You are a highly respected elder, why bother about such a small matter?" Wu Mian directly gave the other party a high hat of virtue and prestige. Elder Song was inevitably rendered speechless by the other party's rebuttal. At the same time, there were a lot of people who had heard the commotion outside the door and were watching the show. For the sake of face, Elder Song still refused to relent. "I've already made it very clear. This mission has failed. Come back next year." After saying that, he waved his hand, intending to chase the two out. At this moment, a clear and familiar voice suddenly came from outside the door. "Big Brother Chu Hen, you're inside, aren't you?" "What?" Then, there was a commotion outside the door. The crowd quickly parted, and two figures with refined temperament walked in. One of them had a lively aura, clear eyes, and a sweet and adorable appearance. The other had a cold and elegant temperament. Her phoenix-like eyes revealed nobility and elegance. She was beautiful and moving. High-grade saint physique and ninth-level talent. Wu Mian's eyes widened, and he looked at Chu Hen beside him in disbelief. The two of them were calling him? As soon as he saw the two of them, the young man behind the counter smiled politely and humbly. "The two of you are here." Before he could finish speaking, Yi Yao had already arrived in front of Chu Hen. The corners of her eyes curved, and she smiled faintly. "Big Brother Chu Hen, I knew you would definitely arrive in time." Chu Hen smiled helplessly. "I can't. The mission has failed." "What?" Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang looked at each other. How was that possible? With Chu Hen's strength, not to mention a mere crescent bone, even hundreds or thousands of crescent bones would not be a problem for him. And then? Long Xuanxuang asked. "And then I have to leave now," Chu Hen said. Since he couldn't stay, he could only think of other ways. For Chu Hen, being rejected was not a big deal. "What? If Big Brother Chu Hen wants to leave, then I don't want to stay here either," Yi Yao said resolutely. "Big Sister Xuanxuang, you should leave too." Long Xuanxuang also nodded. Then, the three of them prepared to leave. However, they had only taken a few steps when Elder Song's anxious voice immediately came from behind. "Wait. Oh!" Chu Hen turned around in surprise. Elder Song actually walked out from behind the counter, and his old-fashioned face was full of kindness. "I take back what I said just now. Your mission has been completed." The sudden change of decision caused Chu Hen to be somewhat surprised. On the contrary, Wu Mian, who was at the side, revealed an expression as if he was watching a show. "Mission completed. Your mission is completed. Please stay," Elder Song said incoherently. Obviously, the other party didn't really want Chu Hen to stay, but he was afraid that Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang would run away. 2 months ago, in the entrance test of Flying Cloud City in Sinking Star State, the news of 5 newcomers with Saint Physique appearing in a row had already shocked the entire sect. Among them, there was even a newcomer with level 8 martial arts talent and upper-rank bloodline. As soon as they arrived, Yi Yao, Long Xuanxuang, and the others had already been noticed by the higher-ups of the sect. As the person in charge of the registration of newcomers, Elder Song naturally knew the two of them. Now that they were about to leave the martial sect, he immediately couldn't sit still. Any genius with a sacred physique leaving would be a huge loss to the sect. It didn't matter whether Chu Hen left or not. However, once Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang left, the responsibility was so great that he, a mere backyard elder, couldn't bear it. Tisk, you've changed so quickly. Yi Yao curled her lips in dissatisfaction. Elder Song's old face was obviously a little embarrassed, and he could only let out a dry laugh. At the same time, another voice suddenly came from outside the door. I've seen them before in Flying Cloud City. He's the person with a martial arts talent of the 9th level. Boom! As soon as he said this, quite a bit of chaos broke out inside and outside the pavilion. Elder Song, Wu Mian, and the young man behind the counter had faces full of astonishment. Speaking of which, the most shocking thing to the sect was not Yi Yao's martial arts talent of the 8th level and the boundary of the high-grade Saint Physique. It was the newcomer who had not even reached the profound body, but had a martial arts talent that surpassed the 9th level from top to bottom. The martial sect could be said to have different opinions about him. Everyone wanted to see this person. Just what was the reason for such an unimaginable contrast? Because Chu Hen had gone on an examination mission, the martial sect had only left behind rumors of him and had never seen him with their own eyes. However, seeing the gazes of everyone present as if they were looking at a monster, Chu Hen felt helpless. It was true that good things did not happen, but bad things spread far and wide. He didn't expect himself to be so famous. Then, he looked at Elder Song and said, "Please give me the keepsake." Elder Song was startled, as if he had not recovered from the shock. He waved his hand at the young disciple behind the counter, and the latter hurriedly picked up the jade token. Then, junior brother Chu Hen, may I ask which peak academy you chose? Beichen. Chu Hen answered without hesitation. Wu Mian's eyes immediately lit up. However, Yi Yao hurriedly advised, Big brother Chu Hen, Beichen is the worst peak academy. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai have both chosen the East Profound Peak Academy. Let's go there too. Even though the East Profound Peak Academy was already full. But it was relative. Any monstrous genius who possessed the boundary of the Saint Physique bloodline was the target of the various peak academies and even the various sections. Therefore, to Yi Yao, there was no such thing as a full quota. However, Chu Hen shook his head with a smile and said to the young man, Beichen it is. The young man nodded. Then, holding the keepsake in one hand, he pinched a wisp of condensed true inner force with the other. True inner force revolved around his fingertips, like a cyclone revolving around his 2 fingers. Then, he pointed at the keepsake with both fingers, and a strange rune fused into the token. Buzz, the next moment, the pattern on the token shone brilliantly. Then, the smooth back of the token faintly revealed the 2 fierce-looking words Beichen. Below the words Beichen, a series of vertical silver rays appeared one after another. There were 7 rays in total, each about the length of a fingernail, arranged in a row. They took up about 1/10 of the back of the token. Chu Hen took the token and looked at the silver rays on the back with a hint of confusion in his eyes. This is a star key. It's very useful. I'll tell you about it in detail later. Wu Mian walked over happily. Thank you for coming to our Beichen Peak Academy. Chu Hen smiled and did not say much. To him, it did not matter which academy he went to. The reason he chose Beichen Peak Academy was mainly because Wu Mian had stood up for him earlier. Although he did not stay because of him in the end, he was still grateful. Seeing that Chu Hen had made up his mind, Yi Yao could only sigh. Then, she took out a jade token and handed it to the young man inside. I'll go to Beichen too. Me too. Long Xuanxuang also took out her keepsake and placed it on the table. Everyone in the room was astonished. Chu Hen looked up and saw Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang's token only had a vertical silver ray on the back. There was no symbol of the Peak Academy. It seemed that the 2 of them had not chosen the Peak Academy recently. Instead, they had been waiting for him. Between Chu Hen's brows, there was a bit of gentle gentleness. As for Wu Mian, He was rubbing his head with both hands and had a "oh my god" expression on his face. Yao, who had a high-grade saint physique, and Long Xuanxuang, who had a level 9 martial talent, had both chosen to join Beichen Peak Academy. "We've hit the jackpot." Wu Mian was extremely excited. He clenched his fists and almost jumped up in joy. He was overjoyed. Oh no, if those old guys from the Peak Academy knew about this, they would laugh so hard they could not close their legs. "I, Wu Lauer, have made a great contribution. Ha 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 ha." Seeing the words Beichen appear on Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang's tokens, everyone present, including Elder Song, shook their heads secretly. It's a pity that such good talent is going to be buried in Beichen Peak Academy. The other 3 Peak Academies have the best resources. I really don't understand. There's nothing incomprehensible about it. Haven't there been a lot of wasted geniuses in the martial sect over the years? There are so many short-lived geniuses that we can't even count. I think these people will be eliminated soon. Chapter 1134. After leaving the registration pavilion, Chu Hen, Yi Yao, Long Xuanxuang, and Wu Mian returned to the square of the mountain gate. "Hey, who's that? Can you stop snickering? You're smiling so much." Yi Yao glared at Wu Mian angrily. Wu Mian quickly covered his mouth. "No, no. Also, thank you for joining Beichen Peak Academy. Let's work hard together to make Beichen Peak Academy flourish and rise again." "Tisk, cut it out." Yi Yao rolled her eyes in disdain. "You speak so righteously, but don't think that I don't know that you were sent by the management of Beichen Peak Academy to recruit people. Big brother Chu Hen was tricked by you the first day he came." Wu Mian felt embarrassed and quickly found an excuse to slip away. I have something to do. You guys talk first." "Wait." Yi Yao stopped him. "You haven't arranged a place for brother Chu Hen." What? New disciples don't even have a place to live?" Wu Mian sighed and said, "Actually, most of the disciples look for and build cave residences in various areas of the sect. For example, I have no right to interfere with the division of territory. Are you kidding? How can we have a place to live? You guys are different." Wu Mian really felt that this little girl was very difficult to deal with. "You're the first batch of disciples, so the management will give you priority. As for the latecomers, you have to find a place to live. To be honest, more than 80% of the disciples don't even have a house and live in cave residences. There are even some disciples who don't even have a cave to live in and wander between the peaks every day." Hearing this, even Chu Hen couldn't help but be speechless. When he was in Flying Cloud City, he heard that the competition in Wu Ancestor Realm was very fierce. But he didn't expect it to be so fierce that everyone would fight for every inch of land. "I don't care." Yi Yao was unwilling to let it go. "Today, you must find a place for brother Chu Hen, or don't even think about going back." Wu Mian felt a headache coming on, but because he couldn't afford to offend Yi Yao, he could only nod and agree. All right. I'm really scared of you." After that, everyone flashed towards the north. While looking for a cave residence, Wu Mian also roughly explained the structure and distribution of the sect to Chu Hen. "This is the central main peak of the martial sect, Heaven Martial Peak. With Heaven Martial Peak as the center, the area within a radius of 5,000 miles is a public area. The disciples of the various peak academies can move around as they please. This area has the dojo, artifact forging field, alchemy pavilion and so on." Wu Mian pointed at a towering mountain several hundred miles away. The giant mountain peak was as majestic as a mountain. Looking from afar, the top of Tianwu Peak was filled with many large buildings that looked like heavenly palaces. The surrounding peaks were connected to it. The numerous iron chain bridges that traversed the sky were like the grand Tao of rainbows amidst the clouds and rain, and they had an extraordinary artistic conception that was like the work of the gods. Chu Hen exclaimed with admiration in his heart. As expected of a first-rate power in the Midland. This is merely a corner of the martial sect's territory, yet it's already so magnificent. When he saw this, Chu Hen couldn't help but feel slight anticipation in his heart. Up ahead is the territory of our Baichen Peak Academy. Not long after, Wu Mian pointed at a peak that was similarly peerlessly imposing and like an enormous blade. This is the main peak of our Baichen Peak Academy, and it has our own dojo, martial skill pavilion and so on. Chu Hen nodded to indicate that he was listening. Even though the Baichen Peak wasn't as majestic as Heaven Martial Peak, it was absolutely majestic, and many figures with fierce auras were moving about on the main peak. Numerous white cranes that emitted an aura of spirituality spread their wings and flew between the mountain peaks that were covered in mist. Needless to say, merely this Baichen Peak Academy far surpassed the Mount Kunliu that Chu Hen had stayed in the past in all aspects. Passing by the Baichen Peak Academy, Chu Hen and the other three searched towards the back of the academy. However, finding a cave abode was much more difficult than they had imagined. All the peaks that were rich in spirit chi and had excellent luck had long been occupied. Even the spots with rich heaven and earth spirit chi were occupied. After a few hours of searching, the four of them were simply mentally exhausted. There's really no good place. Yi Yao sighed. I didn't lie to you, did I? Wu Mian smiled bitterly. Humph, it's all your fault. Big brother Chu Hen, let's go to Dongxian Peak. No way. Grand Aunt. Wu Mian begged repeatedly. I'll help you find it, all right? I'm going crazy. Wu Mian had already reached the point where he wanted to cry but had no tears. Long Xuanxuang said straightforwardly, stay with us. Yes, big sister Xuanxuang is right. Yi Yao quickly agreed. Although our residence is a little small, the spirit chi is very rich. Big brother Chu Hen, why don't you stay with us? However, Chu Hen smiled and shook his head. That won't do, I'm afraid it'll affect you guys. To Chu Hen, he preferred to be alone when he was cultivating. Moreover, there were too many people around. If Chu Hen went in and out of the same place with them every day, he would inevitably be criticized. Since Chu Hen refused to compromise, the few of them had no choice but to continue to move towards the outer area. The further they went, the thinner the spirit chi became. Even so, the peaks that lacked spirit chi were still occupied by those who came earlier. Just as they were searching for a place to go, a quiet mountain surrounded by a river appeared in front of them. From afar, there was a cave on the side of the mountain. There were two bronze doors at the entrance of the cave. The door was half open, and weeds grew at the entrance. It was obvious that it had not been cleaned for a long time. Moreover, the density of the spirit chi there could no longer be described as scarce. It was almost in a state of nothingness. Isn't that the place where old Een Monkey used to live? After so many years, it's still the same as before. There's not even a shadow, Wu Mian muttered casually. The speaker did not mean anything, but the listener knew. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and asked casually, Old Een Monkey? Yes. Wu Mian nodded, and a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. That's the famous person of our Baichen Peak Academy. It's said that ever since he entered our martial sect, he has never interacted with anyone. He's alone every day like an invisible person. However, this guy is vengeful. As long as someone offends him, he'll keep quiet and endure it. Until the other party almost forgot about it, he'll turn around and be beaten half to death by old Een Monkey. He knows how to endure. Isn't he pretty powerful? Yi Yao replied. Ha ha. Wu Mian rolled his eyes in disdain. If he's taking revenge openly, he'll have nothing to say. However, that guy likes to play dirty behind people's back. For example, he'll dig traps, set fire to houses, and chase poisonous insects into other people's cave abodes. There's nothing he can't do. Later on, everyone called him Old Een Monkey. However, don't tell me. Wu Mian paused, and a hint of doubt appeared on his face. Old Een Monkey has never revealed his true strength until there was a sect battle where he shocked the world and made it to the top 8. Unfortunately, in the first round of the top 8, He met the strongest genius of East Profound Peak at that time, Ao Yun Manor, who is now the peak master of East Profound Peak Academy. Although Old Een Monkey was defeated, he made everyone look at him in a different light, and then? Yi Yao's interest was piqued, and she stared at him with her big, curious eyes. Wu Mian spread out his hands. Then, everyone still didn't like Old Een Monkey. Of course, Old Een Monkey himself doesn't like to talk to people. Later on, he carried out a mission from the sect and never returned. No one knows if he's dead or alive. It's been more than 10 years and the spiritual energy around here has always been very thin. Everyone says that Old Een Monkey is too cunning and has ruined the providence and spiritual energy here, so the spiritual energy hasn't gathered and this cave abode has always been empty. After listening to Wu Mian's story, Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang only smiled. This kind of thing could be taken as a joke. Regardless of how old Een Monkey was, the spiritual energy here was indeed very thin. Chapter 1135. Since it's an ownerless place, I'll stay here for the time being. The moment Chu Hen said that, the 3 people beside him were shocked. No, Brother Chu Hen, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth here is too little. It's too unfair for you to stay here. Yi Yao hurriedly shook her head. To Wu Xiu, absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was one of the most important factors in raising his cultivation base. It was even more so in a martial sect that fought for every inch of land. A place that was filled with spiritual energy would determine the level of a cultivator's state of mind. Just like the saying, a clever housewife cannot cook without rice. No matter how outstanding one's talent was, without the integration of external energy, it would be difficult for one's cultivation base to increase. This was also the reason why many rich and powerful forces liked to build their sects in places where spiritual veins converged. However, Chu Hen only smiled. There's nothing unfair about it. The competition in the martial sect has always been fierce. It's fine as long as there's a place to stay. After I slowly familiarize myself with the rules here, I'll choose another place. After all, the 3 of them had been following him for a day. It was almost evening. Even if they searched the entire Beichen Peak Academy, they might not be able to find a good place to stay. They could only settle down for the time being. With that, without waiting for Yi Yao to say anything, Chu Hen took the lead and flew down towards the uninhabited mountain peak below. The mountain peak was not imposing, nor was it steep. However, it gave off a feeling of solidity. There was a 10-meter-tall stone tablet erected at the entrance of the cave abode. There were 3 big words carved on the stone tablet. Sky Observation Peak. The words were not sharp, nor did it have any heroic aura, but it had a special aura of seclusion. After more than 10 years of weathering, the stone tablet was covered in dark dust, causing the special aura to be even more obvious. Sky Observation Peak? Chu Hen's face revealed an astonished expression, and he asked Wu Mian, who had also arrived in a flash. This was written by Senior Old Een Monkey? Wu Mian nodded. Not only did he write it, but he also named this mountain peak Guantian, Guantian. Everyone said that he was a frog at the bottom of a well, a frog in a well. Chu Hen smiled and didn't say anything. Then, he walked towards the cave dwelling. The 2 half-open stone doors were covered with cobwebs and covered with dust. When the door was fully opened, a dark aura that had been sealed for a long time rushed out. There were even a few mountain beasts inside that were alarmed and hurriedly flew out of the cave abode. Swa-sa. With 2 sounds, they disappeared into the bushes outside. Seeing this, Yi Yao couldn't help but frown. He muttered softly, "Is this place even livable?" Chu Hen smiled. "Of course, I just need to clean it up." The few of them stepped into the cave one after another. Upon entering, he discovered that the space inside was much larger than he had imagined. Moreover, there wasn't a single exit in the Immortal's Cave. The interior of the Immortal's Cave led directly to the back of the mountain. Looking up, one could see the sun, moon, and stars, and looking down, one could see the pond and the clear water. In the cave, there were stone tables, stone chairs, and a stone platform for meditation and cultivation. All the necessary equipment was available. But because it had been empty for more than 10 years, the tables, chairs, and stone tables were all covered in a thick layer of dust. Wow, it's not bad. Wu Mian looked at the environment inside the cave abode in surprise. That old monkey really knows how to enjoy life. He decorated this cave so spacious and bright. I thought it would be a fist-sized place inside. Chu Hen also nodded his head. He was also quite surprised. He thought that the cave abode would be filled with a very thick smell of dust. But not only that, the air flow was smooth, and there was no sense of blockage. What's the use of spacious? Spiritual qi is so scarce. Yi Yao pursed her lips. Although the environment inside the cave abode was not bad, it was only suitable for ordinary people to live in. For cultivators, it was not suitable to stay for a long time. Chu Hen rubbed her head and said gently, "It's not bad, I'm quite satisfied. You two go back first. After that, I'll look for you. Sister Xian Shuang and I will help you clean up before we leave." "No need, I can do such a small thing alone." "Got it." Yi Yao nodded reluctantly. Long Xuanxuang did not say much. She simply said a few words and left the sky observation peak with Yi Yao. "Hee, junior brother Chu Hen, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first," Wu Mian said with a smile. "Wait," Chu Hen suddenly shouted. "Is there anything else?" The other side was puzzled. Chu Hen's eyes flashed with a trace of deep meaning. "Senior brother Wu Mian, do you know about the time wheel?" "Time wheel? Of course I know. That's the supreme treasure of our sect. Everyone in the Midland knows about it. Don't you know?" "I know this." Chu Hen paused and then said, "Can the disciples use the time wheel?" "Are you kidding? If it can be used at will, can it still be called the supreme treasure of the sect?" Wu Mian shook his hand and shook his head. "Unless the sect master agrees, even the 4 peak masters can't use the time wheel without authorization." "But, why do you ask this?" Chu Hen shook his head. "It's nothing, I was just curious, so I casually asked." "Just curious?" Wu Mian was a little puzzled, but he did not think much about it. After all, for a newcomer to the sect, he was curious about everything. "Then I'll leave first. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to look for me. I live in the White Rain Peak." Chu Hen nodded and then sent the other side away. Soon, only Chu Hen was left in the huge cave mansion. There was silence. Chu Hen's eyes became deep. He took a long breath and shook his head secretly. It seemed that it was more difficult to borrow the time wheel than he imagined. I can only take it slowly. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they come. The situation of the martial sect still needed to be explored slowly. Night gradually fell, the sun and moon rotated, and darkness gradually enveloped the earth. West of the heaven martial peak, peaks that looked like blades pierced through the sky, showing a majestic momentum. On a peerless Tao platform, several stone pillars were surrounded by black iron chains exuding a dark aura, like huge chains that trapped gods and demons. Mysterious runes flickered and lingered. The rich spiritual power that permeated the world continuously flowed along the iron chains towards the center of the Tao platform. At the center of the Tao platform, a young figure gently closed his eyes. In the state of all rivers running into the sea, he absorbed the spiritual energy from all directions into his body. Just at this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard from afar. The young man on the platform slowly opened his eyes. Between his brows, there was an elegant yet dignified aura. Senior apprentice brother Xiao. The figure walked out of the darkness with a hint of urgency and said in a deep voice, "Yao Xiong." He Kai and the others failed. Buzz! A sharp sound echoed in the air. The young man on the Tao platform showed a cold gaze, and the elegant aura between his eyebrows disappeared in an instant. However, he quickly returned to his normal state. A frivolous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. So, he came to the martial sect? Yes. Hee, it's really surprising, even the few of them failed. I really didn't expect it either. Yao Xiong has never made any mistakes, and He Kai's assassination archery has never failed before. This time, not a single person came back to report. I'm afraid they've all been wiped out. The young man's eyes became sharp again, and the smile on his face became colder. Very good, which peak courtyard is he in? Beichen Peak Courtyard. Chapter 1136. The sun and moon alternated and the stars moved. When the tens of thousands of stars in the distant sky gradually disappeared, the dazzling morning glow had already dyed the eastern sky red. The morning sun was like fire, soaking the sky. Rays of dazzling light pierced through the vast sky like holy light was pouring down on the earth. The martial sect in the early morning was shrouded in a dense golden spirit mist. The spirit was extraordinary, and nothing was tainted by the mortal world. For Chu Hen, this was his first day in the martial sect. A beam of warm sunlight shone in from the southeast of the open-air cave. The fresh air slowly flowed inside the cave. Chu Hen walked out of the door, and the beautiful scenery of the mountains and rivers unconsciously brightened his field of vision. Although the Sky Observation Peak's spirit chi is scarce, the environment is really good. Chu Hen stretched his arms and slightly moved his muscles and bones. After yesterday's cleaning, the inside and outside of the cave had long been renewed. Even the weeds and leaves outside the door were all removed, revealing the stone platform in the front courtyard that was previously paved with limestone. Enter the martial sect. The first step of the plan was completed. If he wanted to borrow the time wheel, he would probably have to spend a lot of effort. Since that was the case, he might as well start from a new disciple and do it step by step. I want to see what's so special about this so-called martial saint land. Then, Chu Hen's figure moved and leaped off the Sky Observation Peak, heading in the direction of the North Star Peak. Youthful energy was reflected in every place. Numerous young figures with extraordinary auras were like eagles soaring in the sky, and they were filled with vitality. Around the North Star Peak, the mountain ranges overlapped, and the iron chain bridges crossed. The majestic buildings made people feel fascinated. Looking from afar, those magnificent buildings all had their own names. Qin Martial Pavilion, Divine Pill Hall, Weapon Pavilion. Many disciples came and went in and out of it. On the huge combat arena, a few disciples were sparring with each other, causing waves of shocking energy fluctuations to erupt from them. After roughly understanding the situation around the North Star Peak, Chu Hen did not stay for long. He then left the North Star Peak Academy's area and went straight to the central area of the Heaven Martial Peak to investigate. As the central comprehensive area of the martial sect, it was a place where the disciples of the 4 peak academies gathered together. The area around Tianwu Peak was the most popular. Giant peaks that pierced through the clouds were like pillars that supported the heavens. The huge iron chain bridge displayed the power to cross the river, its style peerless. Immediately, Chu Hen descended from the sky-reaching platform at the top of Sky Martial Peak. The spacious Lingshao platform was particularly magnificent. It was like a heavenly city, with arched bridges and springs on the south, and long corridors and avenues on the east. Many Wu Zong disciples were walking around casually. Hiss! This should be the Heaven Martial ranking. A long sigh came from the front. Chu Hen looked up and saw a huge stone monument that was 100 meters tall and about 10 meters wide standing in the middle of the high firmament platform. Impressively, numerous names were engraved on the stone tablet with vigorous strokes. As if standing on the head of a giant, the names on the stone tablet seemed to be looking down on everyone present. TSK, the Heaven Martial List. Among the younger generation of the martial sect, the 15 strongest people. This is a real monster. When will I be able to engrave my name on it? Don't even think about it. Unless the heaven marshal list is extended to 100 people, only then will we have a little bit of hope. Otherwise, don't even think about it. Hearing the exclamations filled with awe around him, Chu Hen's eyes could not help but shine. Heaven Marshal List. The 15 strongest disciples of the martial sect. This was a milestone. It was also a kind of king-like glory. When Chu Hen glanced at the two words Shao Alliance, a cold light instantly appeared in the depths of his eyes. Shao Alliance. A top monster with the bloodline limit of the heaven-capturing holy body. He was also the first martial sect genius that Chu Hen came into contact with in the Immortal and Devil Tomb. 11. This was his ranking on the Heaven Martial list. Chu Hen was secretly surprised. With Shao Alliance's strength, they could not enter the top 10 of the list. It seemed that the waters of the martial sect were much deeper than he had imagined. Gently letting out a breath, Chu Hen walked past the bottom of the stone tablet. Strolling on the vast Lingshao platform, many people around cast their gazes at Chu Hen. Newcomer? A young man squinted his eyes and walked up. Yes. Chu Hen replied politely. Seeing your extraordinary bearing, you should be at the profound sky realm, right? Do you want to join our Aotian team? In the future, when we carry out sect tasks, we can help each other. Team? Aotian? Chu Hen was a little speechless. He smiled. I'm sorry, I don't have such plans at the moment. Junior brother, you're new here and don't understand the situation here. It's very difficult to mingle in the martial sect. A person, especially a newcomer, can easily be bullied to death. If you join our team, no one will dare to bully you in the future. The other party was not willing to give up. There's really no need for that. Chu Hen still refused. Junior brother, the competition in our sect is very fierce. It's too easy for a person to be at a disadvantage. We have more people and strength. If we unite, we can occupy a place in the martial sect, right? The other party was really annoying. Chu Hen simply ignored the other party and walked forward on his own. After that person followed for a distance, he finally chose to give up. TSK, what the hell, are all the newcomers nowadays so arrogant? You really don't put me, Ding Xiaoyun, in your eyes. Humph, when you fall, come back and beg me to join you, I won't care about you. The other party muttered as he turned around and left. Subsequently, Chu Hen met a few other groups of people, all of whom invited Chu Hen to join some gang or team. Naturally, Chu Hen rejected all of them. Walking past the Lingshao platform and crossing a long giant stone bridge, Chu Hen arrived at the southern side of the Tianwu Peak. Immediately after, a magnificent scene that was peerlessly imposing and was like a vast god appeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. That is? The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed as he saw that on the peak of the mountain in front of him, there was a strangely high platform with distinct levels. High walls were built on all three sides of the platform. At the center of the Dao platform, 4 tall towers stood erect, like giant hands holding up the sky. In the center of the towers, there was a huge crystal that shone as bright as a star, emitting a dazzling brilliance. Waves of strange energy fluctuations spread out from the sky in front of him. The diameter of the huge crystal was more than 100 feet, like a bright moon in the sky. The nebula cyclone that lingered in the sky covered the sky, like a magnificent mirage below the crystal ball. The martial sect disciples lined up to climb the platform. Chapter 1137. The nebula cyclone that blotted out the sky was magnificent, like a mirage in the sky. 4 towering towers lifted a crystal ball with a diameter of over 1,000 feet, as if they were holding the moon in their hands. It was as bright as the stars, overflowing with brilliance. The spectacular scene was like a majestic god, causing people to be amazed. This is... Chu Hen was surprised. He then walked down the giant arch bridge, passed through the iron chain bridge that connected the two peaks, and arrived at the platform at the side of the peak. Standing under the platform, the crystal ball above his head was even more spectacular, as dazzling as the bright moon. Standing under it, he could not help but feel as if he was a mayfly trying to shake a tree. On the platform, a few young men with extraordinary auras stood guard on both sides of the steps. More than 10 martial ancestor sect disciples lined up to the platform in an orderly manner. In front of them, there was a stone platform that was more than a meter tall. The stone platform was rectangular in shape, facing upwards. A series of complicated and mysterious runes were engraved on the surface of the platform. Everyone took out their sect disciple tokens and scanned the front of the stone platform one by one. The runes on the stone platform immediately emitted a bright light, accompanied by a piercingly cold energy fluctuation. The martial ancestor sect disciple immediately disappeared from the platform. Seeing that, Chu Hen's heart was even more astonished. He glanced to the side and asked a young disciple not far away, "Senior brother, may I ask what this is? What are they doing?" The young man smiled. "Newcomers, right?" Chu Hen did not deny it and nodded. "This is the Starry Dream Realm, the most sacred place in our sect." "Starry Dream Realm?" Chu Hen looked up. "That's right." The young man looked kind-hearted, and he continued to explain to Chu Hen. Starry Dream Realm is a powerful secret realm created by the first-generation founder of the martial ancestor sect and many seniors with the Wheel of Time as the hub. Its biggest feature is that it has derived an independent space. In the Starry Dream Realm, you can sense the activity of various major attributes by more than 10 to 20 times under normal circumstances. To put it simply, cultivating in the astral dream realm is 10 times faster than cultivating in the outside world. 10 times faster? After listening to the other party's words, Chu Hen was greatly surprised. If that's the case, then 10 years of cultivation for others can't even compare to 1 year of cultivation in this astral dream realm? Yeah. The man smiled and said, "Do you want to go in and try? I was just thinking about it." Shortly after, Chu Hen also lined up with the young man. The people in front entered the Reverie Stars realm very quickly. There was no delay. Soon, it was the turn of Chu Hen and Zhang Xian. The young man said, "Junior brother, I'll go in first." Chu Hen nodded in agreement. He walked up to the stone platform in front of him and used his disciple token to face the platform. A beam of bright light shot out, and the runes on the surface of the platform flashed. Buzz! There was a strong spatial fluctuation, and the huge crystal ball above everyone's head seemed to have a dark and soft light swimming inside it. That young man immediately turned into a beam of light and disappeared in front of Chu Hen. "It really is magical," Chu Hen secretly marveled. Then, he took out the jade token with the words, "North Star," engraved on it and faced the stone platform. Whoosh! The bright runes swayed with a luxurious light, and Chu Hen suddenly felt a pulling force. A white light flashed in front of him, and the next moment, a completely different world appeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. The stars were like the sea, and the universe was vast. It was like the endless chaotic star territory, and the world was long and endless. Between heaven and earth, there were tens of thousands of meteorites floating. Chu Hen seemed to be standing in the endless starry sky, surrounded by nebulae, and the sky was dark and deep. Is this the astral dream realm? Harboring some expectations, Chu Hing soared into the sky and moved forward to search. In the dark starry sky around him, he could vaguely see a few scattered figures moving. This strange scene was like roaming in the boundless sea of stars. After a while, a giant door appeared in front of Chu Hen. The giant door was about 300 meters tall and more than 30 meters wide. It was square-shaped and quietly floated under the starry sky. The interior of the giant door was surging with a dense scarlet flame. Standing in front of it, a scorching hot aura surged out of the door and pounced on them. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and he was secretly shocked. This should be the entrance to the fire attribute star realm. After a moment of hesitation, Chu Hen went around the giant flaming door and continued forward. Not long after, a giant door that was glowing with a dense blue light appeared in front of Chu Hen again. The inside of the blue door surged with waves, and circles of soft light rippled in the darkness, splashing traces of coldness. It was obvious that this was the door to the star realm that led to the water attribute star realm. After that, Chu Hen saw a variety of star realm doors with different types of power. Apart from the common types of power, there were also the rarely seen yin-yang, desolation, darkness, light, and other types of power. Of course, there were also star realm doors that did not contain any type of power, such as true origin energy and Reiki energy. The more he saw, the more Chu Hen's understanding of the martial ancestor realm increased. It was no wonder that countless people wanted to fight their way into the martial ancestor realm. There was indeed a reason. Zap zap. Suddenly, a giant door that was flashing with the light of lightning appeared in front of Chu Hen. A violent and powerful aura of destruction came from the inside of the door, and the air was filled with arcs of electricity. It's the power of thunder and lightning. Chu Hen's eyes lit up. After a moment of hesitation, Chu Hen's figure moved, and he headed straight for the giant door that was glowing with the light of lightning. The light-shaking realm flashed, and with a whoosh, it shot through the door like a starry arrow. Boundless darkness assaulted them, as if they had passed through a long spatial tunnel. A blinding light blossomed at the top of the door, and a deafening rumble of thunder came from all directions. Rumble. In an instant, Chu Hen arrived in a chaotic world of thunder and lightning. The sky trembled, and the earth collapsed. Pillars of lightning that emitted an endless aura of destruction pierced through the sky, flashing across the vast sky. Under Chu Hen's feet was a high sky platform that floated above the 9 heavens. Thousands of lightning tribulations intersected above his head, and the wind and clouds changed color. It was enough to make one's scalp go numb. However, Chu Hen's face was filled with surprise. He could clearly feel the vigorous power of thunder and lightning that permeated the world, as well as the strong restlessness of the mysterious killer divine thunder heart in his body. Chapter 1138. Rumble. Thousands of lightning tribulations rumbled in the 9 heavens. This was a world where only thunder and lightning existed. The violent power of thunder and lightning constantly blended between heaven and earth, almost tearing the entire space into pieces. On the high firmament platform suspended in the air, Chu Hen sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. Above his head, the destructive thunder and lightning seemed to have not heard it around him. There were countless lightning arcs flashing on his 4 wings. If one were to observe carefully, one would discover that the inexhaustible power of lightning was unceasingly transforming into strands of tiny lightning lines that were converging towards Chu Hen's body. Chu Hen was as still as a mountain, letting the thousands of fine electric arcs merge into his body. As time passed, minutes and seconds passed quietly. The huge high firmament stone platform seemed to be shrouded in a layer of restless 3-dimensional electric net. Chu Hen was in the center of the electric net, like the hub that controlled the entire thunder territory. The dense power of thunder and lightning flowed along his limbs and bones, and concentrated in the position of his heart. The heart of the mysterious killer's thunder. It had long been integrated into one with Chu Hen's heart. Waves of luxurious and bright dark blue light flickered and pulsed on Chu Hen's chest. Even the surrounding blood vessels were glowing with strange light patterns like lightning. Buzz. Suddenly, Chu Hen abruptly opened his eyes. Within his deep eyes, a fierce lightning light flickered. Chi-chi. In an instant, the countless thunder and lightning that had gathered between heaven and earth suddenly gathered on Chu Hen's palms. The violent power gradually expanded, like magma rapidly brewing at the bottom of a volcano. The endless power of thunder and lightning gathered in front of Chu Hen, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, it blended into a ball of lightning and thunder. Uncontrollable electric arcs lingered above and below the lightning ball, emitting a manic and high power. The entire space on the high firmament platform trembled. In the blink of an eye, a ball of lightning with a diameter of more than 5 meters impressively formed. The terrifying energy was compressed to an extremely astonishing density. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. He raised both of his palms, and accompanied by the rolling power of wind and lightning, the lightning ball instantly pierced through the blue dome of heaven and flew towards the sky above the surging dense thunderclouds. Boom! In the next second, the 9 heavens shook violently, as if a star had exploded in the void. An energy shock wave swept through the 9 heavens, mixed with thousands of thunderbolts, tearing the sky and cracking the earth. Majestic electric pillars flew wantonly, eroding the world in all directions. Chu Hen stood up proudly under the thunderbolts, as if he was an ancient shaman spirit that controlled this region of lightning. He raised one hand to the sky, and wild lightning arcs erupted from his body. The aura of the mysterious killer divine lightning heart spread out, and an invisible power of control was released once again. A strange rhythm appeared in the void. Sparks and fire rained down, and winds swirled around the clouds. Under the fusion of boundless thunder and lightning, phantoms that resembled the shape of thunderbirds quietly condensed transformation. Chu Hen shouted sternly, and his unparalleled power shocked everyone present. But at this moment, Chu Hen's constantly growing aura was suddenly cut off, like the day was instantly drowned by darkness. Without any warning, the majestic power between heaven and earth instantly returned to nothingness. What was going on? Chu Hen was shocked, and before he could react, a dazzling white light caused his pupils to shrink into a dot. Then, a bright world appeared in front of him, and Chu Hen suddenly found himself below the Tao platform of the Reverie Star's realm. I actually came out. Chu Hen looked around in confusion. Many martial arts sect disciples lined up on the Tao platform in order. 4 stone pillars that supported the sky stood there, supporting the huge crystal ball. Obviously, he had indeed been ejected from the Reverie Star's realm, and it was inexplicable. Then, Chu Hen walked to the end of the line and continued to line up, waiting to enter the Reverie Star's realm again. After a while, Chu Hen stepped onto the Tao platform again. He flipped his hand, took out his disciple token, and swept it towards the stone platform. However, just as Chu Hen was about to return inside again, there was no reaction from the stone platform, and the runes engraved on it did not emit any light. Chu Hen was stunned. At the same time, the crowd behind him could not help but frown. What's going on? Hurry up! Don't waste everyone's time. Chu Hen was even more perplexed. Once again, he swung the token back and forth on the stone platform, but there was still no movement. This time, a few young guards who were guarding here walked over. What's going on? One of the guards asked. Chu Hen replied, It seems that I can't enter the Reverie Star's realm. Can't enter? The guards looked at each other, and the one who asked earlier took Chu Hen's token with a disdainful sneer on his face. The star key has been used up, so naturally, you can't enter. Don't you know that? Star key? Chu Hen was slightly stunned. Previously, when he received his disciple token and chose the Peak Academy, there were 7 vertical silver lines on the back of the token, apart from the 2 words, Northern Star. At that time, Wu Mian casually said, Those are star keys, and they're very useful. I'll explain them to you later. However, Wu Mian forgot about it later, and did not explain the use of the star keys to Chu Hen in detail. The guard returned the token to Chu Hen. Chu Hen looked at it, and sure enough, the 7 vertical lines on the back of the token had completely disappeared. Only the 2 words, Northern Star, were left. 1 star key can allow you to cultivate in the Reverie Star's realm for a day. You've used up all your star keys for this month. You can leave now. Without a star key, you can't enter the Reverie Star's realm. The guard said indifferently. 1 star key represents 1 day? Chu Hen was even more surprised. He had already stayed in the Reverie Star's realm for 7 days? He thought it would only be a few hours at most. Chu Hen shook his head inwardly. It seemed like he had used up all his star keys, and that was why he was sent out of the Reverie Star's realm. May I know how to obtain star keys? Chu Hen asked as he retreated to the side. You can obtain 7 star keys every month. Apart from that, the sect's disciples can give or trade with each other. You can also obtain star keys by completing missions given by the sect, the guard replied impatiently. He then gestured for Chu Hen to leave. Since he had already figured out the reason, there was no need for Chu Hen to stay here. He had to admit that the Reverie Star's realm was really amazing. In just a short 7 days, Chu Hen could already feel the power of the Divine Thunderheart had increased significantly, and his control of the Divine Thunderheart had also become much more skillful. However, the consumption of the star keys was a little too fast. However, when he thought about it, if he could cultivate in the Reverie Star's realm indefinitely, even a first-rate force like the martial sect would not be able to withstand such a huge amount of energy. He could obtain 7 star keys every month. Or he could exchange them for missions, or trade between disciples. This made the star keys extremely precious. It could also spur competition between the sect's disciples. As he walked across the majestic arch bridge, Chu Hen seemed to be a little reluctant to part with the strange feeling of the Reverie Star's realm. It's a pity that there are no more star keys. Otherwise, I would be able to further evolve the Divine Thunder Heart. Chu Hen let out a soft sigh of relief. Just as he walked across the stone bridge and returned to the Sky Tower Plaza on Sky Marshall Peak, there was a commotion not far ahead. A scroll was hung on a wooden post that was used to announce announcements. Zhuolu Battle, Star Key Battle. The crowd discussed loudly. The Zhuolu Battle is here again, and the odds are 1 to 10 again. Looks like another group of newcomers is going to be cheated. What do you mean cheated? They are all willing participants anyway. Chapter 1139. Newcomers vying for supremacy, star keys vying for supremacy. The Battle of Zhuolu is here again. The odds of 1 to 10 are really attractive. There was an eye-catching piece of Xian paper pasted on the notice board. Everyone gathered around the notice board and discussed animatedly. Many people had hesitant expressions on their faces. Chu Hen, who had just returned from the astral realm of reverie, was about to leave, but when he saw the commotion, he subconsciously cast a curious gaze over. The contents of the notice were rather clear and concise. Newcomers vying for supremacy, star keys vying for supremacy. 1. Participants voluntarily participate in the Battle of Zhuolu. 2. Using star keys as the competition chip. 3. The competition venue is the Swamp Forest, to the northwest of West Dome Peak. 4. The participants' mission is to pass through the Swamp Forest and successfully reach the Elephant Boat platform, 500 kilometers away. 5. Based on the number of star keys currently in the participants' possession, those who successfully complete the mission will receive 10 times the number of star keys as a reward. 6. When carrying out the mission, there will be interceptions. The number of interceptors will be 1/10 of the participants. 7. The Battle of Zhuolu this time is not a sect mission. Looking at the rules, Chu Hen's face couldn't help but turn a little gloomy. Using star keys as the competition chips, after passing through layers of interceptions, those who successfully reach the Elephant Boat platform will receive 10 times the number of star keys in their possession. Just this condition alone was full of temptation. Moreover, the number of interceptors was only 1/10 of the number of participants. In other words, 10 participants could deal with 1 interceptor. 10 against 1, this greatly increased the success rate of the battle. They come every year to deceive newcomers. This group of people is really too shameless. At this moment, a familiar voice entered Chu Hen's ears. That's right, only an idiot would fall for their tricks. Another voice also cursed. Chu Hen tilted his head slightly and saw Wu Mian walking over while shaking his head. There was another person beside him. That person was actually the guy who dragged Chu Hen and invited him to join some Proud Sky team. A junior brother. Chu Hen, why are you here? Coincidentally, Wu Mian raised his head and saw Chu Hen standing in front of him. I went to Sky Viewing Peak to look for you 2 days ago, but you weren't there. How was it? Are you used to it? You two know each other. The young man next to him blurted out. Wu Mian narrowed his eyes. Why? Ding Xiaoyun, do you know junior brother Chu Hen? Ding Xiaoyun muttered in dissatisfaction. I don't know him, what a rude newbie. Also, please call me Ding Xiaoyun. Wu Mian immediately understood. Apparently, Ding Xiaoyun wanted to pull Chu Hen into his proud heaven team, but was heartlessly rejected by Chu Hen. That's why he was unhappy. Wu Mian laughed dryly and did not say anything else. Chu Hen suddenly said, Lend me a few star keys. Star key? Wu Mian was startled and asked in confusion, Where's your star key? It's used up. You're done? Wu Mian was speechless. That's 7 days' worth of star keys. You didn't stay in the galaxy dream for the past 7 days, did you? Yes. Chu Hen nodded in agreement. As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Mian and Ding Xiaoyun looked at him as if they were looking at a monster. Are you kidding me? I can only stay in the galaxy dream for 3 days at most before I can't take it anymore. Your star key wasn't stolen by someone else, right? Junior brother Chu Hen, tell me, I'll get it back for you. Wu Mian said in an imposing manner. Chu Hen was slightly helpless. This guy was really not an ordinary chatterbox. He flipped his hand and took out his token. Just lend me a few star keys. Wu Mian carefully looked at the token in Ding Xiaoyun's hand. When he saw that all the silver marks on the back had disappeared, he immediately believed Ding Xiaoyun's words. He took out his token and said unwillingly, But I only have 1 star key left. 1? Chu Hen lightly wrinkled his eyebrows, then just 1. Helpless. Wu Mian shook his head and took Chu Hen's disciple token. Then, he put the 2 tokens face to face. The latter poured a strand of true yuan energy into his own token. Following a burst of gentle light patterns, illusory gossamer threads revolved between the 2. In the blink of an eye, the vertical silver mark on the back of Wu Mian's token disappeared, and a vertical mark appeared on the back of Chu Hen's token. Thank you. I'll return it to you in 2 days. Chu Hen took the token back. Wait. Wu Mian suddenly thought of something. He glared at Chu Hen and said, Don't tell me you're going to participate in the rookie competition? Forget it. Don't waste my last star key. There are so many idiots every year. Ding Xiaoyun laughed in disdain. It's just 1 star key. It doesn't matter if I lose, Chu Hen replied. It's not a big deal if you lose, but you'll be throwing your money away. A star key is also very precious. Don't think that you'll get 10 times the value. Wu Mian wanted to persuade him again, but Chu Hen ignored him. He turned around and left Sky Marshal Peak. My star key. Wu Mian looked like he was about to cry. It's fine, it's fine. Who knows, you might really win. Ding Xiaoyun's smile was full of schadenfreude. You're thinking too much. The star key is definitely going to be thrown away, but it's fine. Do you want to join our proud Heavens Society? Get lost. After leaving Sky Marshal Peak, Chu Hen returned to Sky Observation Peak. The spacious and bright cave abode seemed to be much cleaner than before. The stone table, stone chairs, and Dao platform were all clean and shiny like a mirror. There were also a few plates of celestial fruits on the table that emitted a spiritual fragrance. He didn't even need to think to know that Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang had come. Because he had stayed in the celestial dream realm for 7 days, he hadn't returned yet. Looking at the spotless cave abode, Chu Hen smiled and shook his head. After a simple rest, Chu Hen sat on the Dao platform and began to meditate. The power of the heart of divine lightning was much stronger than before. Chu Hen still needed to perfect it into his true yuan, and this flirting lasted for an entire day. When Chu Hen opened his eyes, the color of the sky outside had already sunk into dusk. The cave abode was pitch black. Only the dark blue electric arcs on Chu Hen's body glowed with a soft light. Chu Hen casually flicked out a flame and lit up the candle on the table. The cave abode was immediately lit up. The spiritual qi here is really too scarce, Chu Hen murmured softly. For an entire day, the amount of spiritual qi Chu Hen absorbed could be said to be pitifully small. In this kind of environment, it would inhibit the growth of his cultivation. Looks like I still need to obtain more star keys, Chu Hen thought to himself. But then again, why did that old monkey choose this cave abode with scarce spiritual chi? Was it simply because the good places were all taken by others? Not necessarily. Chu Hen stared at the wall in front of him, and could not help but fall into deep thought. Could it be that there's something special here? With that, Chu Hen's eyes surged with curiosity. He subconsciously reached out to the wall behind him. A cold touch was transmitted from his fingertip. He lightly tapped it twice, producing a dull sound. Chu Hen helplessly laughed at himself. I'm afraid I'm thinking too much. Just as Chu Hen retracted his finger, a fingernail-sized stone chip fell from the wall. Chu Hen froze for a moment. The rocks of this mountain wall should not be so fragile. It was like a ray of light flashing through the starry sky. Chu Hen immediately stood up and lightly tapped the wall behind the stone platform with his right index finger again. Although the sound was dull, there was a slight noise. Immediately, Chu Hen gathered a trace of hidden energy at the joint of his index finger. A wave of hidden energy fell, crack. In an instant, spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the ground where his fingers had landed. Chapter 1140. Kacha, cracks that were like spider webs spread out on the wall in front of Chu Hen, and under the impact of the soft hidden force, the surface of the wall was like a piece of mud that was rapidly drying up. Rocks of all sizes fell down and dust filled the air. Within the cracks of the wall, a string of peculiar talisman characters and numbers suddenly appeared before Chu Hen's eyes. Whoosh! In an instant, Chu Hen's pupils couldn't help but constrict. It was as if a window had suddenly opened in a secret room that was blocked on all sides. Waves of restlessness arose in his heart. This abode really has a secret hidden within. Immediately after, Chu Hen pressed his palm onto the wall once more, and a powerful force surged out like an undercurrent. Subsequently, the surface rocks of the entire wall all slid down. The internal compartment was completely exposed to the air. The flow of air seemed to become more rapid. Even the candlelight on the stone table flickered with joy. Chu Hen stood before the wall, and what appeared before his eyes was a string of complicated talisman characters. They were arranged in a disorderly manner, like a draft that was casually engraved, and every stroke revealed traces of profoundness amidst the casualness. The talisman characters that filled his eyes seemed to be of all sorts, and they were complicated like a vast rain of stars, causing Chu Hen to be both astounded and bewildered. What exactly are these? Scanning through all the contents, they covered the entire wall. They seemed to be chaotic, yet they gave one a deep and obscure feeling. After a careful look, a trace of hesitation flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. Subsequently, he stretched out his hand to touch the string of talisman characters and talisman characters in the middle. This string of talisman characters was around 50 plus, and it included words. Chu Hen moved the true origin energy within his body and converged it into the string of talisman characters. Buzz, a surprising thing happened. A slight airflow was startled in the air, and the string of talisman characters immediately glowed with a gentle light. The gentle light reflected into Chu Hen's eyes, and then it twisted and moved like a tadpole. Whoosh! The next moment, a dazzling light covered Chu Hen's eyes, and he suddenly felt an unfamiliar message appear in his mind. North Star Shuttle Jade, Divine Light Chess Star. North Star Execution. North Star Jew. The heavy sound reverberated in Chu Hen's mind like a clap of thunder. Before he could react, it was as if Chu Hen's consciousness was pulled into an endless whirlpool by an invisible large hand. Immediately after, a dark dreamscape appeared in Chu Hen's mind. In the darkness, a human-shaped shadow was sitting cross-legged. Powerful and solid true essence swirled around his body and rapidly rotated around his body. The black shadow's hands continuously formed seals. Then, his palms faced each other, leaving a gap in the middle. Swish, swish, swish. The swirling cyclone quickly gathered between his palms. The cyclone intertwined and rapidly compressed into a rhombus-shaped crystal. A luxurious blue light was emitted from the diamond-shaped crystal. That rhombus, which was only about 30 centimeters wide, flashed with a dazzling aura. 1. Chu Hen's mind faintly trembled. Then, as if he had just woken up from a dream, his sharp pupils became gentle. The dreamscape just now disappeared, and the scene in front of him once again returned to the messy runes and numbers on the wall. What was that just now? Chu Hen seemed to be in a bit of a trance. He muttered in a low voice, "North Star Shuttle Jade, Divine Light Chess Star. North Star Execution. North Star Execution, this is." Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows raised, and 2 rays of light appeared in his eyes. "If I'm not wrong, this is an extremely high-level martial arts technique. The method of condensing power just now could be said to be unheard of and unseen." Even Chu Hen, who had many powerful martial arts, felt it was quite strange. Looking at the wall full of runes that looked like scribbles, Chu Hen was both surprised and astonished. However, this was left behind by Senior Old Een Monkey, and he had it before. If it was said that it had existed before, it seemed a bit unreasonable. After all, the martial sect had thousands of years of history. Old Een Monkey had become a disciple of the sect more than 10 years ago, but before he came here, no one had discovered the secret of this place. Moreover, if this was left behind by Old Een Monkey himself, it would be even more surprising. However, if the words "Sky-Gazing Peak" on the stone tablet at the entrance of the cave were compared to the handwriting of the runes in front of him, there were some similarities. In other words, the contents on this wall were most likely left behind by Old Een Monkey. After a short period of contemplation, Chu Hen did not continue to dwell on this matter. His attention once again returned to the wall full of secret scrolls on the stone wall. A trace of anticipation flashed in his eyes. Then, he once again extended his palm, which was surrounded by true essence, towards another string of runes. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Chu Hen did not take a step out of Sky-Gazing Peak. He did not even leave the entrance of the cave. He forgot to eat and sleep, studying the contents of the runes on the stone wall day and night. The more he studied, the more Chu Hen felt that this martial art was unfathomable, broad and profound. The condensed form of true essence was even more peculiar than powerful martial arts, such as Thousand Thunder Escape and Sky Light Blade. Phew! Chu Hen sat on the stone platform and let out a long sigh of relief. There was a hint of amazement between his brows. "I'm afraid that even the profoundness of one sword flying immortal technique is far from this martial art's complexity." After more than 3 days, Chu Hen had only roughly understood it. As for the deeper aspects, he still needed more time to study. However, Chu Hen did not intend to continue. He had other things to do today. Chu Hen lifted his gaze and turned to look at the stone wall behind him. After a slight hesitation, he waved his hand and a vigorous Reiki energy surged out of his Naiwan palace. The rich Reiki energy instantly transformed into nearly 100 runes that were as bright as spirit butterflies. The runes were arranged and intertwined, immediately transforming into a layer of light screen that covered the stone wall. Buzz! Immediately after, the light screen disappeared along with the contents on the wall. Under the concealment of the runes, the entire stone wall once again became extremely ordinary. It was so ordinary that no one would take a second look at it. Chu Hen got up and walked out of the cave abode. The bright and beautiful sunlight, accompanied by a gentle breeze, blew over, unwittingly refreshing one's spirit. Chu Hen stretched his body, his eyes as bright as the stars. "Junior brother Chu Hen." At this moment, Wu Mian's familiar voice came from afar. Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows raised, a look of surprise on his face. "Junior brother Chu Hen, it's good that you're still here." Wu Mian stumbled down to the sky observation peak and said while panting, The newcomers are fighting for the throne. From today onwards, a total of 125 new disciples have signed up. In other words, there are 13 interceptors, 125 new disciples. 13 interceptors. It was almost a ratio of 10 to 1. I got it. Thank you for your information. Chu Hen replied indifferently. Information, my ass. Information. I'm here to advise you not to waste your time. Even if there are more than 100 of you, you can't defeat those 10 people. I just received news that Shen Hong is among the interceptors. This guy's cultivation has already reached the peak of the 4th Order Eternal Realm. It's said that he's already half a step into the 5th Order. He's below the Heaven Marshal ranking and can be said to be difficult to find an opponent. Don't waste that star key for nothing, Wu Mian advised. After all, he was very clear that the so-called newcomers are fighting for the throne was a method used by the sect's veteran disciples to cheat the newbies of their star keys. In the martial sect, star keys were precious and lacking for most of the disciples. Therefore, the sect's disciples would use all sorts of methods to obtain star keys from other places. And the newbies who couldn't resist the temptation were the easiest to trick. Because I'm the one who brought you into the Baichen Peak Academy, I don't want to see you being tricked. Let me tell you this. Up until now, there hasn't been a single newcomer who has been able to complete that mission. Don't always think that you're lucky. Wu Mian rolled his eyes and said. Chu Hen smiled. Yes, I got it. Good that you know. Wu Mian replied with a little pride. Let me ask you something. Speak. There's nothing in the martial sect that I, Wu Mian, don't know. Do you know about the Baichen technique? Don't you know? Wu Mian blurted out without hesitation. It's the supreme martial skill of our Baichen Peak Academy. It's also one of the 4 strongest ultimate skills in the sect. Wu Mian rolled his eyes. You're thinking about the Baichen technique again? Then I advise you to join the newcomers fighting for the throne. At least the latter is more realistic. Oh. Chu Hen rubbed his nose and asked calmly, can't I cultivate it? It's not that I can't cultivate it, but I'm not qualified to cultivate it. There are only 2 ways to obtain the Baichen technique. One is to be taught by the Peak Academy master personally, and the other is to comprehend it from the Saint Monument. Saint Monument? A glimmer appeared in the corner of Chu Hen's eyes. That's right. The inscription on the Baichen technique is recorded on the martial Saint Monument in our sect. Only disciples who have been in the sect for more than 3 years are qualified to comprehend it from the Saint Monument. Currently, among the disciples of the Baichen Peak Academy, only senior brother Wu Yan has cultivated the Baichen technique. Chu Hen could not help but feel puzzled as he listened to Wu Mian's explanation. He pretended to ask casually, do you think Senior Old Shady Monkey knows the Baichen technique? Are you kidding me? With Old Shady Monkey's character, how could he know the number 1 ultimate technique in our Baichen Peak Academy? Although Old Shady Monkey has comprehended the inscription from the Saint Monument before, he only lasted for 3 days before he failed. Are you sure he failed? Of course. Wu Mian said with certainty. Even the strongest senior brother Wu Yan of our Peak Academy had to sit under the Saint Monument for 3 months before he comprehended the Baichen technique. Who the hell is that Old Shady Monkey? How can he compare to senior brother Wu Yan? 3 days? That's crazy. Moreover, Wu Mian paused before he continued, if that Old Shady Monkey really comprehended the Baichen technique, why didn't he use it in the top 8 rank advancement battle of the sect battle? Is he stupid? Why didn't he use it? Chu Hen thought to himself. Wait, why are you asking me this? Wu Mian stared at him suspiciously. Chu Hen smiled faintly. I'm just curious. After all, I'm a little curious about the previous owner of this cave abode since I live here. But how do you know so much? How do you know so much about what happened more than 10 years ago? Wu Mian scratched his head in embarrassment. Actually, I'm an orphan. I was brought to the sect to be raised by someone when I was young. However, my aptitude was too poor, so he didn't really care about me. Although he said this with a smile, his tone was obviously a little hoarse. It was precisely because he grew up in the martial sect that he had personally experienced the changes in the martial sect over 20 years ago. Chu Hen nodded and immediately turned to leave. Where are you going? Wu Mian quickly asked. Newcomers fighting for supremacy. I'll go. Chapter 1141. To the northwest of West Dome Peak, the endless mountain forest displayed its magnificent momentum. There was a lush forest in the periphery of the forest. As far as the eye could see, the color of the trees in the forest seemed gloomy. The lush trees were like huge umbrellas that covered everything in the forest. This was the swamp forest at the back of West Dome Peak. The swamp forest covered a large area, and there were many dangerous traps in it. Usually, not many people would come here. At this moment, the entrance of the swamp forest was already filled with people. Apart from the 120 new disciples who were participating in the deer hunt, there were also many people who came to watch the show. It's another group of lambs that have been tricked by a wolf. Just like us 2 years ago, we thought we would be lucky enough to escape. In the end, we ran into an iron plate. We can't even find a hole in the net. Ha 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 ha, it's the same every year. However, I heard there are many talented newcomers this year. There are 4 to 5 people with Saint physiques who have broken through the Saint bloodline in the Drifting Star State alone. Who knows, there might be an accident this time. It's useless. The interceptors have the advantage of timing and location. Moreover, even Shun Hong is participating this time. There's no hope for the deer chasers. Is that so? Even Shun Hong is here. I think these rookies are going to be badly injured. Although there were many negative voices, the more than 100 young people gathered at the entrance did not waver. Although they were newcomers, all of them were monstrous geniuses that were revered by the locals before they joined. They were young and arrogant. They were like newborn calves that were not afraid of tigers. Moreover, the reward was 10 times the number of star keys. It was enough to move most people and make them lose their mind. Under the noisy atmosphere, the deer chasers were scattered in front of the entrance of the swamp forest. Some of them were in groups of 3 to 5 as they chatted with each other. Chu Hen stood under a big tree. Wu Mian stood next to him with a look of disdain and helplessness on his face. If I knew I wouldn't be able to persuade you, I would have asked Junior Sister Yi and Junior Sister Long to stop you. Chu Hen raised his brows and murmured, That's right. I should have asked them for more star keys. The corner of Wu Mian's eyes twitched when he heard this, and his forehead was covered with black lines. He rolled his eyes in disdain. Fortunately, I only have 1 star key. There's no harm in letting you create it. Brother Chu Hen. Suddenly, a familiar and hearty voice sounded. Chu Hen raised his gaze, only to see a young man and a young woman with extraordinary temperaments walking towards him. Brother Zhao, Chu Hen said with a pleasantly surprised smile. The newcomers were none other than the son and daughter of Hidden Sky City's city lord, Zhao Xuanxiong, Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai. Haha, I even went to look for Junior Sister Yi Yao 2 days ago to ask about your situation, but I didn't see you at all. I didn't go to welcome you into the sect that day, so I hope you don't mind. Zhao Qingyi said modestly. Chu Hen shook his head. Brother Zhao, you're too kind. I'm ashamed. Zhao Qingkai pursed his lips and glanced at Chu Hen from the corner of his eyes. He didn't even greet Chu Hen. However, Chu Hen didn't mind. After all, City Lord Zhao Xuanxiong had helped him so much. If he didn't have the City Lord's keepsake, he probably wouldn't have been able to send Xiao Shaowan back to the ancestral butterfly clan in time. Looks like you're here to participate in the rookies' battle as well? Zhao Qingyi asked. Chu Hen nodded in affirmation. TSK. Zhao Qingkai ridiculed in disdain. Even the limit of your bloodline is so low. You're dragging down our overall level, see? Even your friend doesn't think highly of you, and you still won't listen to my advice. Wu Mian sighed and shook his head. Chu Hen raised his brows lightly, but he only smiled and didn't say anything. Right at this moment, a commotion broke out on the other side of the crowd. Surrounded by many people, a few young figures with extraordinary appearances walked over. Chu Hen, Zhao Qingyi, and the others also looked over. The two young men in the lead had arrogant expressions on their faces, and their demeanor was extraordinary. Qi Xing, Yang Rong. Zhao Qingyi's eyes narrowed as she said in a deep voice, "It's these two." Wu Mian was also shocked. "You know them?" Chu Hen asked casually. "Of course." Wu Mian nodded and continued, "These two are the most impressive among the new disciples this year. Qi Xing is a top genius from the glorious Watch City. It's said that during the test, his martial talent reached level 9, and his bloodline limit is a mid-grade saint body. Yang Rong is a monster from the Red Sand West Province, and his martial talent has also reached level 9. His bloodline limit is slightly weaker than Qi Xing's, but he's still a mid-grade saint body. The martial sect was recruiting new disciples. It wasn't just limited to the Deep Star Province. The other provinces and regions in the Midland were also conducting tests and selections. While there were a few geniuses with saint bodies in the Deep Star Province, there were also geniuses in other places. Among the talented disciples, Qi Xing and Yang Rong were the most outstanding. As soon as Wu Mian finished speaking, Qi Xing and Yang Rong walked toward them under everyone's watchful eyes. "Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai from the Deep Star Province?" Qi Xing said calmly. "Yes." Zhao Qingyi's aura was not inferior at all. Among the geniuses, it was like the competition between the stars and the moon. Qi Xing nodded. "Both of you are qualified to receive my invitation." "Invitation?" Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai glanced at each other. "What do you want to say?" Zhao Qingkai asked. "Now is not the time to talk." After Qi Xing finished speaking, he raised his hand and made a please gesture as the corner of his mouth curled up into a smirk. Zhao Qingkai raised her eyebrows and immediately walked towards them. Zhao Qingyi hesitated for a moment, but then followed. From the beginning to the end, Qi Xing and Yang Rong completely ignored Chu Hen, not even sparing him a glance. "Damn it!" Wu Mian cursed in a low voice. "Are you blind? We're two living people, can't you see?" Chu Hen, on the other hand, did not think much of it. He smiled and said nothing. At the same time, a strong gust of wind suddenly whistled through the air. Everyone was shocked and looked up at the sky. A huge flying beast broke through the air, stirring up a strong gust of wind as it appeared above everyone's heads. On top of the giant beast stood a few figures with steady auras. The leader smiled as he looked at the 100 or so new disciples gathered below. "I'm Wu Jun from the West Sky Peak, and I'm also the judge of this competition. I believe everyone here knows the rules, right? I'll repeat it briefly. As long as you pass through the swamp forest and arrive at the elephant boat platform before noon tomorrow, the mission will be considered completed. The reward for the mission is 10 times the number of star keys. Once the mission begins, you can't back out halfway. The moment you enter the swamp forest, the 13 interceptors will set off from the elephant boat platform." The thunderous voice caused everyone's hearts to tremble. As his voice fell, deafening sounds of cannons once again rang out in the sky. Colorful light patterns bloomed above the swamp forest like raindrops. The raindrops formed the silhouette of a giant deer. Seeing this scene, everyone's blood boiled and their morale soared. In an instant, the entrance to the swamp forest opened. The dark forest was like a prehistoric beast with its mouth wide open. Chapter 1142. I hereby announce that the competition for the Star Key will begin now. Rumble. A thunderous sound reverberated in the sky above the swamp forest. In an instant, the entrance of the swamp forest was like the mouth of a prehistoric beast. The people in front were as tiny as ants. Everyone's blood was boiling and their morale was greatly boosted. Under the melodious sound of the horn, everyone charged into the dark swamp forest like a herd of beasts that had just been released from their cages. Over 100 new geniuses had an imposing manner. However, the new disciples led by Qi Xing, Yang Rong, and the other geniuses did not seem to be in a hurry. Apart from pride, there was also confidence on their faces. It's starting. Wu Mian grabbed Chu Hen's wrist and pointed at Qi Xing, Yang Rong, and the rest. You won't be able to pass through the swamp forest by yourself. The best way is to follow them. Not only are Qi Xing and Yang Rong talented, but their cultivation has also reached level 3 Eternal Realm. If you follow them, you might stand a chance. All right, I know what to do. Chu Hen was speechless. He waved his hand and followed the crowd into the swamp forest. This guy. I'm doing this for his own good. Wu Mian snorted in dissatisfaction. All of them are really young and energetic. They don't know that they're going to hit a metal net soon. In the outer region, the martial arts sect disciples who had come to watch the show were gloating. It's not a metal net, it's a metal plate. Haha. But then again, the overall strength of this year's batch of new disciples is much stronger than before. There's also Qi Xing, Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, and Zhao Qingkai. They might be able to break the norm of the past. Let's hope so, but don't forget that Shen Hong is among those who obstruct us. I've received news that Shen Hong is planning to enter the Heaven Martial Leaderboard this year. Heaven Martial Leaderboard? Everyone present couldn't help but narrow their eyes when they heard these 3 words, and the depths of their eyes surged with burning reverence and reverence. The Heaven Martial Leaderboard represented the 15 strongest people in the martial ancestor sect. For any disciple in the sect, their ultimate goal was to carve their name on the heavenly martial ranking one day. If Shen Hong really had the ability to enter the rankings, then the outcome of the competition between the newcomers was obvious. As soon as they entered the swamp forest, the dark and damp air enveloped them like night. Towering trees covered the sky, and not even the light could penetrate through. It was dark, deep, and unsettling. Faced with this abyss-like environment, the people in front immediately stopped in their track. The fiery passion from before abruptly died down. The dark environment mixed with the cold wind was like an invisible ghost hand, strangling everyone's heart. There was an inexplicable sense of oppression. You're already at a loss? Laughter mixed with ridicule came from behind. The people in front were startled. They turned their heads and saw a few figures walking into the forest unhurriedly under the crowd's escort. If you guys do this, it's no different from giving them the star key. Qi Xing looked at the people in front of him with a faint smile. Everyone looked at each other, and one of them walked up and said, "What are you trying to say?" Qi Xing glanced at Yang Rong, who was beside him. The latter smiled proudly and said, "The ones who obstruct us have the right time and place." The so-called right time meant that the ones obstructing them were the older generation of the sect, while they were the newcomers. Just like how the younger generation treated the older generation, no matter how fearless they would still subconsciously feel that they were the weaker side and would more or less feel respect. In terms of place, it was the swamp forest in front of them. They had just arrived and knew nothing about the situation in the swamp forest. However, the ones obstructing them knew the depth of every inch of the land. With the advantage of place, it was not difficult for them to defeat the many. Yang Rong smiled as he looked at the people around him. He glanced at Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai, who were standing next to him. Senior brother Qi Xing and I have been studying this for the past few days. In the history of the martial sect, there's almost no precedent of a newcomer winning. Therefore, even if the obstructing side can deal with the 10 of us, it's more than enough for them to deal with us. At this moment, they're coming from the opposite direction. The faster we run, the sooner we'll fall into their hands. Everyone frowned when they heard Yang Rong's words. Chu Hen, who was standing at the back, raised an eyebrow and nodded inwardly as well. One must admit that Yang Rong's analysis made sense. Then, what should we do? Someone asked. Yang Rong smiled faintly. He looked at Qi Xing and continued to say, "Although they have the right time and place, we still have the right people. Time was not as good as place, but place was not as good as people. Everyone's eyes lit up. Senior brother Yang Rong, do you mean we should gather everyone's strength and give it our all? Yes. That's not it. Yang Rong confirmed and denied it at the same time. Indeed, there's a 50% chance of success if we gather everyone's strength. However, we don't want to take the risk for the 50% chance. They did not want to take the risk for the 50% chance? The moment these words left their mouths, everyone's hearts lit up. Even Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and the others were surprised. One must know in the history of the martial sect, there was almost no chance of the newcomers winning. They were not even willing to give it a try when there was a 50% chance. In other words, they had a better plan of attack. If these words were spoken by someone else, they would definitely be sneered at. However, they were standing before geniuses like Qi Xing and Yang Rong. Everyone felt reassured, and they were filled with anticipation. I wonder if both senior brothers have any good suggestions? We'll definitely do our best. Soon after, someone expressed his loyalty. Me too. I'm willing to serve both senior brothers. On one hand, they wanted to obtain more star keys. On the other hand, they wanted to rope in the two top geniuses. In the martial sect where the competition was cruel, a backer was especially important. However, just when everyone was extremely excited, a frivolous smile appeared on Qi Xing's face. His eyebrows were slightly raised as he said in an indifferent manner. Then, first of all, those who are below the third level of the sky profound realm can leave. Those whose cultivation base was below the third level of the heavenly profound stage? Leave? Whoosh! The moment these words left his mouth, some of the people's expressions changed immediately. What do you mean? You want us to leave? Why? While a small portion of the people protested, there were also many people who were fawning on those in power. Just leave if you're asked to leave. Why are you talking so much nonsense? That's right. The overall strength of those who are stopping us is so strong. What's the use of trash like you, who haven't even reached the third level of the heavenly profound stage? What's there to be proud of? Are you looking down on us just because you have a high cultivation base? Don't look down on us. As the people argued, Qi Xing's eyes turned cold. At that instant, an invisible majestic aura swept out from his body. Everyone felt as if they were carrying a heavy burden on their shoulders and immediately shut their mouth. I don't like to repeat myself. Qi Xing's tone was calm, but it was as sharp as a knife to the people. Those who are below the third level of the heavenly profound stage, leave immediately. As soon as he finished his indifferent words, that portion of people's expressions changed again and again. Looking at Qi Xing, whose aura was as powerful as a mountain, those people immediately clenched their teeth and left in a hurry. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 people left the group. The remaining 100 or so people looked at Qi Xing and Yang Rong again. Qi Xing smiled in satisfaction and said, "My plan is very simple. We'll make a feint in the east and attack in the west." Attack in the west? Everyone was a little surprised. Yang Rong continued to explain, "We'll put everyone's star keys on one person. We'll do our best to cover for him and create an opportunity for him to board the elephant boat platform." They were stunned at first, then their hearts lit up. That's right. The reward for this mission is 10 times the number of star keys you have on board the elephant boat platform. In other words, the total reward won't change. You just have to put all the star keys on one person first, and distribute them to us one by one after he successfully steps onto the elephant boat platform. Then the rest will be in charge of covering for him. It's fine even if he gets caught. Wait. If the people in charge of covering for him are caught, but the interceptors find out that they don't have any star keys on them, they'll definitely be suspicious. The people who were trying to stop them were not fools. Once they found out that the others didn't have any star keys on them, they would naturally think that someone must have brought all the star keys to break out of the encirclement. By then, they wouldn't care about the rest of the people and would just wait under the elephant boat platform. Everyone looked at Qi Xing and Yang Rong with questioning gazes. So, each of you will have 1 or 2 star keys on you. You just have to give us the majority of the star keys. Also, the main force in charge of covering for you will have a few more star keys on them to confuse the enemy. After listening to Qi Xing's explanation, everyone was full of praise. You're really thoughtful. Senior brothers, you're really smart. I wonder which senior brother will be carrying the star keys to break out of the encirclement. Everyone's gaze moved between Qi Xing, Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, and Zhao Qingkai. If you want to deceive the enemy, you have to first deceive your own people. You don't have to know who will be in charge of breaking out of the encirclement. It's best if you don't know. Everyone present expressed their agreement. Senior brother Yang Rong is right. We believe in you. Qi Xing and Yang Rong looked at each other and smiled. The latter turned to a young man beside him and said, Lu Wei, collect everyone's star keys. Yes. The man called Lu Wei respectfully nodded his head in agreement. Immediately, he took out his sect token and collected everyone's star keys one by one, threads of light intertwined between the token and the token. The number of vertical lines on the back of the token decreased, while the number of vertical lines on the other token increased. When the number of silver vertical scars reached 10, those silver vertical scars would converge into a red vertical scar, and when the number of red vertical scars reached 10, they would once again converge into a green vertical scar. The first row of silver lines on the back of the token was a single digit. The second row of red lines represented 10. The third row of green lines represented 100. After collecting all of the disciples' tokens, Lu Wei finally walked in front of Chu Hen. On the token in his hand, there were already 3 green, 8 red, and 6 silver vertical lines of light. This meant that he had 386 star keys in his possession right now. Each of them handed over about 3 star keys, and only kept 1. Where's your star key? When Lu Wei walked to Chu Hen's side and was about to ask, she glanced at the unique silver vertical line of light on the Beichen token in his hand. Her entire face darkened, and at the same time, dense disdain and contempt surged out from between her brows. 1 star key? Is this the legendary fishing in troubled waters? 1 star key? In an instant, everyone's gazes gathered on Chu Hen's body. What a joke! 1 star key coming to join in the fun? There are all kinds of birds in a big forest. Even Zhao Qingkai couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. What's this guy thinking? He's just a star key, yet he's here to embarrass himself. I really have nothing to say to him. In the face of the disdainful gazes, Chu Hen didn't care at all and replied calmly. 1 star key can't join? Of course you can. Lu Wei replied coldly and looked at him with a mocking gaze. If you scram now, you can still catch up to those unqualified trash. Unqualified? Trash. Towards Chu Hen, who only had 1 star key, everyone treated him coldly. At this moment, Zhao Qingyi walked up and said, I'll give him 3 star keys. She then took out her disciple's token. On the back of the token, under the 2 words Dongxian, there was a red vertical mark and 2 silver vertical marks. Zhao Qingyi had 12 star keys. Since she came to martial sect 2 months earlier, she received 14 more star keys than Chu Hen. Brother, why do you care about him? Zhao Qingkai didn't seem to want Zhao Qingyi to stand up for Chu Hen. Zhao Qingyi ignored him and only looked at Lu Wei. The latter turned her questioning gaze to Qi Xing and Yang Rong. Qi Xing raised his eyebrows, smiled playfully, and said, Since he's brother Zhao's friend, then accept it. It doesn't matter if there's an extra idler in a strong team. However, just as he finished speaking, Chu Hen's frivolous laughter was heard. I'm sorry, I changed my mind just now. Oh? Qi Xing's face was filled with surprise. Chu Hen raised his head slightly, his eyes like the stars. He didn't back down in the face of Qi Xing's arrogance. The corner of his lips curled into a mocking smile. Chapter 1143. I'm really sorry, I changed my mind just now. I plan to keep this star key for myself. In the face of Qi Xing's mountain-like aura, Chu Hen's eyes shone like stars, and a hint of mockery surged between his brows. As soon as these words came out, everyone present revealed a stunned expression. Who was this arrogant fellow in front of them? How dare he say such words to Qi Xing? Even Zhao Qingyi, who had spoken up for Chu Hen earlier, was stunned. She frowned slightly and looked at Qi Xing in confusion. He's really crazy. Zhao Qingkai could not help but curse coldly when she saw this. Can't you quit while you're ahead? Don't be happy when others say a few words about you. Even though she did not like Chu Hen, they were all from the Drifting Star State and knew each other. She did not want Chu Hen to make a fool of himself in front of so many people. However, Chu Hen did not care about the piercing gazes of the people around him. He faced Zhao Qingyi and cupped his fist. Brother Zhao, thank you for speaking up for me. I will look for you after this matter is over. Farewell. With that, Chu Hen no longer paid attention to the crowd and turned to leave. Wait. He had only taken 2 steps when Qi Xing's indifferent voice came from behind. His tone was light and playful. There's plenty of time in the future. Take care. Take care. Amidst the calm, there was an ear-piercing sharpness. Chu Hen raised his brows slightly and smiled. There's plenty of time in the future. Take care. Shortly after, Chu Hen's body moved and he immediately disappeared into the depths of the dark forest in front of him. This fellow is so arrogant. How dare he be so rude to senior brother Qi Xing? Seeing Chu Hen's figure disappear, someone immediately scolded. Lu Wei, who was in charge of collecting the star keys, walked up to Qi Xing and Yang Rong. Senior brother Qi, this person already knows of our plan. If he leaks it to the obstructors. Lu Wei's eyes flashed coldly as she spoke. Qi Xing raised his hand slightly. I don't think he has the guts. It's fine even if he leaks it. A confident smile appeared on Qi Xing's face. Zhao Qingyi, who was standing at the side, felt a little repulsed by the arrogant attitude of the other party. However, in order to complete the battle for the star keys, she could only endure it for now. She thought that after this matter was over, she would not have any further contact with these people. Qi Xing looked at the crowd with a clear and bright look in his eyes. His tone was obviously much more serious. Now then, I will begin to explain the details of the distribution of tasks. What we need to do is not as simple as obtaining the star key. Like a commanding general on the battlefield, a piercingly cold majesty swept out. Qi Xing's eyes turned cold, revealing his ambition that surpassed that of an ordinary person. What we want is to step on the elephant boat platform and break the unchanging ending of the martial sect's newcomers being defeated. In the depths of the deep and dark forest, traps were everywhere and danger lurked everywhere. Swamps of mud that reeked of decay could be seen everywhere. In the swamp, there were many animal carcasses that had already turned into white bones. There were even small beasts that had just sunk into the swamp. They struggled in panic and slowly sank to the bottom of the swamp. After leaving the party, Chu Hen traversed the forest alone with a calm gaze. His emotions and mentality did not change much. There was even a genuine smile at the corner of his mouth. I have to thank you for reminding me. A sudden germination of a plan began to brew in Chu Hen's mind. Swoosh! Like a phantom disappearing into the darkness, he immediately disappeared without a trace. Damn it, bastard, I'm so angry. That Qi Xing really doesn't put us in his eyes. He actually lumped us together with trash. So what if you're not convinced? If you have the ability, go and argue with Qi Xing. Come on. Does he deserve to argue with Qi Xing? Even if all of us join forces, we can't even defeat a finger of Qi Xing. Let's just keep this anger in our stomachs. In the dense forest, nearly 20 young disciples whose cultivation base was below the 3rd level of the Sky Profound Realm, who were previously kicked out, gathered in an open space and complained. Some of them cursed and vented their dissatisfaction. Some of them shook their heads and sighed helplessly. What should we do next? Why don't we form a team? Someone suggested. No, our strength is not good enough. If we move together, we'll be too big of a target and we'll be easily exposed. Let's just go our separate ways. Whoosh! Just when everyone was at a loss of what to do, a gust of cold wind suddenly blew in from the dark forest. Everyone was shocked. Before they could react, a strange, smiling face immediately appeared in the darkness. Hee, looks like a group of abandoned lambs. Not good, it's the interceptor. Everyone cried out in alarm. Retreat quickly. They had only entered the swamp forest for less than 2 hours, but they did not expect the interceptor to arrive so quickly. The panicked crowd's first reaction was to disperse and retreat. Hee, you can't run away. Earth-blocking wall. Rumble. Accompanied by a powerful and majestic aura, the earth trembled and the soil split open. Thick and heavy stone walls that were more than 10 zhang wide suddenly burst out from the cracked ground. The huge stone walls directly blocked everyone's way in an encirclement. In the midst of everyone's panic, violent true origin energy erupted one after another. Break through it. Hurry up. Waves of tyrannical power gushed out, and the multicolored true essence bombarded the stone wall one after another. However, the stone walls were as hard as steel, and the fierce attacks did not cause any damage to them. Hee, you guys don't seem to be very calm. Swish, a frivolous voice came. On one of the stone walls, a young man with a playful smile was leisurely looking at the crowd trapped in the middle of the wall. He's the only interceptor, let's fight him. That's right, we have more people, we don't need to fear him. Everyone immediately soared into the sky and aimed their spears at the only interceptor who came forward. The latter raised his eyes slightly and grinned. Hee, are all newbies so stupid? After saying that, the man put his palms together, and a violent and restless aura erupted from his body. Earth dragon, rumble! As soon as the words left his mouth, the ground in the inner area of the stone wall cracked open again, and a ferocious gigantic stone dragon suddenly shot out from the ground. Horror dawned on everyone who leaped into the air. Before they could react, the ferocious gigantic stone dragon had already charged forward, and it directly swept and rammed wildly. The piercingly cold air current whistled in all directions, and everyone was directly hit and sent flying in all directions. Like sandbags, they were thrown violently on the surrounding ground or the stone walls. How weak! The young man sneered in disdain as he flew down. Give me all your star keys. Also, all of you are out. Out. These 3 cold words were like a resounding slap to everyone's face. They did not expect failure would come so quickly. No matter how unwilling they were, in the face of absolute strength, they still helplessly took out their tokens. Looking at the people who had accepted their fate, the young man smiled even more proudly. Immediately, he mercilessly took away everyone's star keys. Thank you, everyone, for your gifts. The young man looked at the dozens of star keys on the token in his hand with satisfaction. Then, the surrounding stone wall collapsed, and he moved, leaving everyone behind as he disappeared into the forest. The remaining people looked at the silver marks on the back of the token that had disappeared in an instant. Their faces were as ugly as bitter gourds. Everyone's heart was filled with helplessness and anger. There was nothing left, not even a single star key was left. Bang! Suddenly, in the next second, a loud explosion that was mixed with a panicked scream resonated from the forest. Everyone was shocked again. Someone was in trouble again? However, in just a blink of an eye, the forest returned to its deathly silence. What's going on? Something doesn't seem right. Everyone was puzzled by the feeling that something was not right. One of them suggested, "Let's go and have a look?" Let's go. After all, the star keys had all been taken. Since they were already out, there was nothing to be afraid of. Immediately, everyone carefully moved in the direction where the sound came from. After about 30 to 40 meters, a huge pit appeared on the ground. The trees and plants around the pit were all turned into dust. What a shocking force! Everyone secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. However, when they saw the figure in the pit, their expressions changed drastically. It's that guy. The person who fell in the pit was none other than the person who had taken all the star keys from them. At this moment, the person was lying in the pit unconscious. He was in a sorry state. It was obvious he had suffered an extremely powerful impact. Who did it? I don't know. Everyone looked around with fear in their hearts. However, it was empty as though no one had been there. Did this guy knock himself into a tree? I'll go get the star key. Everyone's eyes lit up. However, they soon realized the token was thrown into the pile of rocks at the side, and the star key on the back of the token had disappeared. Rumble. In an instant, everyone looked at each other with shock and uneasiness on their faces. Chapter 1144. The mantis stalks the cicada. Unaware of the oriole behind, at this moment, Chu Hen was shuttling through the dense forest like a gust of wind. His eyes were like the stars, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. He held a jade token with the words North Star engraved on it in his hand. Originally, there was only one silver mark on the back of the token, but now there were 5 red marks and 3 silver marks. This also meant that the number of star keys had increased from 1 to 53. The sum of the star keys of the 20 new disciples and the interceptor. It was just as Chu Hen had said. Qi Xing, Yang Rong, and the others' plan had reminded him. The reward would be based on the number of star keys he had when he boarded the elephant boat platform. In other words, before noon tomorrow, Chu Hen could change the number of star keys he had. 53. A faint smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. He had originally planned to simply complete the newcomers vying for the throne mission, and obtain 10 star keys was his original intention. Now, it seemed like his goal could be magnified infinitely. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Time passed second by second. The deer chaser and the interceptor were rapidly closing the distance between them. This was a battle of wits and strength. The newcomers were split into several teams and traversed the swamp forest, advancing towards the elephant boat platform. The interceptors relied on their familiarity with the swamp forest's terrain to carry out ambushes in the forest. The deep and dark forest was no longer quiet. A series of shockwaves formed by the collision of forces spread out in the forest. When the two sides met, an intense battle broke out. Fire python dance. Bang! Boom! A heavy bang mixed with a torrent of scorching flames swept through the forest in all directions. The scarlet flames covered the sky and earth, and wherever they passed, the plants were all turned to ashes. Bang, bang, bang. After a few consecutive muffled sounds, 7 or 8 panicking figures were directly knocked to the ground. Fireballs scattered around them, emitting scorching heat. Damn it! One of them cursed while holding his chest. What should we do? Senior brother Lu Wei? The few people beside him cast inquiring looks at the young man. The man's eyes turned cold as he said in a deep voice, "Don't act rashly. Our mission is to cover." At the same time, a tall figure shrouded in crimson flames leisurely walked out from the depths of the forest. With every step he took, the wet ground beneath his feet would emit a hissing sound, and white steam would rise from it. "How are you all?" Staring at the crowd in front of him with a mocking gaze, the tall man stretched out his thick palm. "Hand them over." Everyone furrowed their brows and their faces darkened. Although their main task was to protect the main team, no one was willing to be eliminated so quickly. "Humph, don't be too happy too early, we haven't lost yet," the young man in the lead shouted in a deep voice. "Hee hee, you really won't shed a tear until you see the coffin," the interceptor sneered, and then the crimson flames covering his body rose. He raised a hand, and the vigorous flames converged between his palm and arm, forming a solid fireball. Everyone's expression changed again. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. "Hey, there's another one hiding here." However, at this moment, a sharp cold light flashed in the interceptor's eyes. He suddenly turned around, raised his hand, and punched a big tree behind him. "Come out!" Hua! The powerful and violent fireball was like a meteorite wrapped in crimson flames. The space trembled, and the temperature between heaven and earth rose rapidly. Bang! A heavy and violent explosion sounded, and the big tree was instantly blasted into thousands of pieces. A fierce aura whistled down, but in the same second that the tree was blown up, a dazzling and piercingly cold electric blade flew out. Accompanied by the rapid sound of the air being torn apart, the swift and fierce large electric blade directly split the incomparably tyrannical fireball into two halves. What? The interceptor's expression changed. Before he could react, a dazzling electric light suddenly streaked across the air. The speed was so fast that it was like a shooting star that traveled thousands of years. Everyone only saw a lightning arc flash in front of their eyes. Bang! The explosion was deafening, and the willfully splashing electric light exploded like a rain of fireworks. The interceptor, who was as tall as a bull, was directly struck and sent flying. The ferocious force caused him to successively break a few big trees, and he rolled a few times on the ground like a sandbag before finally stopping. Its reinforcements. Looking at the defeated interceptor on the ground, the eyes of the deer chasers lit up, and they were pleasantly surprised. "Senior brother Lu Wei, we're saved, haha. Haha, we're really timely." The few of them were especially happy. However, Lu Wei, who was leading the team, looked at the dark depths of the forest with some doubt. The sound of steady footsteps on the branches and leaves made a suah-suah sound. Under the excited gazes of the crowd, a slender young figure slowly walked out. The invisible pressure was as powerful as the undercurrent of the deep sea. When they saw that person's face, everyone's face suddenly turned pale. Their eyes were wide open, and their faces were full of disbelief. "It's him, boom!" Everyone immediately felt their minds shake, especially Lu Wei, who was leading the team. Previously, when he was in charge of collecting everyone's star keys, that person only had one star key in his hand. It was also that one star key that caused him to be ridiculed and ridiculed. At this moment, Chu Hen was like a king that walked out of the darkness. No one dared to breathe loudly. He'd merely used a single move to instantly annihilate the obstructor. Exactly how formidable was his strength? With an indifferent expression, Chu Hen walked to the side of the heavily injured and unconscious interceptor. He condensed his palm and released a suction force. A jade token flew out of his sleeve and into Chu Hen's hand. The back of the token was engraved with the words West Dome. Below the name of the Peak Academy, there were 7 silver vertical marks and 1 red vertical mark, 17 star keys. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled up slightly. It was indeed much faster to obtain star keys this way. Under the dumbfounded gazes of Lu Wei and the others, Chu Hen did not hesitate to take all the star keys from the interceptor's token. Everyone was stunned. "Oh my God! He's actually taking the interceptor's star key. The robber is being robbed. The hunter is being hunted instead." Everyone was so shocked that they could not say a word. However, after taking the interceptor's star key, Chu Hen did not leave immediately. Instead, he turned around and looked at Lu Wei and the others with a faint smile on his face. Looking at the playful smile on the other party's face, everyone immediately had a bad premonition. Chu Hen raised his handsome eyebrows slightly and extended his hand. Chapter 1145. Give it to me. Your star keys. The scorching airflow between heaven and earth suddenly cooled down. Just a moment ago, the people who thought they had escaped from the interceptor's clutches once again revealed expressions of shock. When Chu Hen broke the rules and snatched the interceptor's star key, it was already beyond their expectations. Unexpectedly, Chu Hen directly extended his hand to them, who were also competitors. Seeing that Chu Hen did not look like he was joking, the people could not help but panic. "We're all newcomers, you can't do this," someone explained. Hee. Chu Hen laughed, a playful look on his face. "I'm sorry, we're not together, right? Senior brother." Chu Hen turned his gaze to Lu Wei, who was leading the group. The latter's face immediately darkened. He clenched his fists and a chill surged in his eyes. The others could not help but look at Lu Wei. Previously, when they were collecting the star keys, Lu Wei saw that Chu Hen only had one star key in his hand. At that time, she mocked him and even told Chu Hen to scram. In this current situation, the tables had been turned. What do you want? Lu Wei suddenly stood up like an angry beast. She glared at Chu Hen and said, So what if I'm the one who chased you away? Let me tell you, if you dare to snatch our star key, you'll have to bear the wrath of senior brother Qi Xing. I'm afraid you still don't know that behind senior brother Qi Xing is. Before she could finish speaking, there was a sudden and rapid movement in the air. Chu Hen raised his hand and an illusory lightning palm swept through the air, then slapped Lu Wei's face. Bang! With a loud sound, sparks flew in all directions. Along with the abrupt stop, Lu Wei's figure was directly sent flying. Scarlet blood mixed with a few broken teeth spurted out from her mouth. Then, she broke 5 big trees in a row and was dragged on the ground for 20 to 30 meters before she could stop. The sudden scene seemed to have caused the whole world to become quiet. The others felt a bone-chilling chill run down their spines. Looking at the unconscious Lu Wei with half of her face swollen like a steamed bun, everyone's faces turned as white as paper. Ruthless. Truly ruthless enough. Previously, he had thought that Chu Hen was a soft persimmon that could be pinched by anyone. Now, from the looks of it, the other party was truly a ruthless character. Who else has anything to say? Chu Hen looked coldly at the remaining people. No one dared to say another word. All of them were flustered, trembling as they took out their respective disciple tokens and handed them over to each other. We've given all of our star keys to Senior Qi Xing and the others. We only have one left. Everyone was afraid that Chu Hen would think it was too little, so they hurriedly explained. Chu Hen knew about the plan of Qi Xing and the others. The others were responsible for protecting them with a small number of star keys, while the main force carried the majority of star keys to break out of the encirclement. Therefore, these people did not have many star keys on them. Even so, Chu Hen had no intention of letting them go. He took all of their star keys without any hesitation. Then, he walked to Lu Wei's side and took out her token. Lu Wei had 2 star keys. Chu Hen put them into his token, and the total number of star keys increased to 78. After doing all this, Chu Hen did not look at the others again. His figure moved, startling a fallen leaf, and immediately disappeared from where he stood. Looking at the mess on the ground, the remaining people were speechless, and their expressions were complicated. They had never expected that Chu Hen, who had been chased away, would possess such shocking strength. We're out. Now we can only watch Qi Xing and Senior Yang roam. I have a feeling that something unexpected will happen in this competition. Let's wait and see. In any case, it has nothing to do with us. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the swamp forest, a number of figures were moving swiftly and mysteriously like ghosts. Constant encounters and fierce battles, all of these happened quietly in the swamp forest. As Chu Hen moved through the forest, his gaze became deep. Through the dense treetops, he could faintly see the sunset in the west. The sky outside gradually darkened. This meant that night was coming. Night was coming. In the depths of Chu Hen's pupils, there was some light flashing. For a hunter, the true battlefield was at night. The real hunting battlefield was at night. As night fell, the entire swamp forest was plunged into an unprecedented darkness. However, this night was not peaceful. The venomous insects, snakes, and birds that lived here were all frightened by these outsiders and fled in all directions. All sorts of intense battles broke out between the interceptors and the challengers. For a time, all sorts of chaotic energies surged throughout the forest. However, apart from the two sides that had not changed over the years, this year's competition seemed a little different. In a certain dark corner there was a third type of participant. They were not challengers, nor were they interceptors. They were independent participants that had been abandoned by the former. Whether it was the challengers or the interceptors, they would kill each other without any qualms. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The fast-moving figure flashed and leaped through the forest. In the dark, a few figures met. Senior Brother Qi Xing, Senior Brother Yang Rong, there's a report from the front line. The 3 teams led by Senior Brother Lu Wei, the 5 teams led by Senior Brother Li, and the 7 teams led by Senior Brother, he have all been eliminated. What? So fast? Yang Rong said in surprise. However, we noticed something strange. After they were eliminated, we didn't see any interceptors. Moreover, the number of interceptors seems to be decreasing. The number of interceptors is decreasing? The few people in the dark looked at Yang Rong in confusion. Did they find out about our plan? Did they retreat to Elephant Boat Station? Zhao Qingyi asked. Impossible. Returning to Elephant Boat Station isn't the interceptors' style. It's not possible for them to leave the swamp forest before dawn. Yang Rong replied. Hee. Qi Xing's calm and confident laughter rang in the air. It seems like there's an element of uncertainty. However, it's all right. We'll proceed with the original plan. Also, try to get to Elephant Boat Station before dawn. Yes. A battle of wits and strength was taking place in the swamp forest. With the advantage of timing and geographical advantage, most of the time, the interceptors were the first to successfully ambush the deer chasers. However, there were 1 or 2 interceptors who were too arrogant and fell into the traps of the deer chasers. Hee, it seems like the interceptors aren't that great after all. In a talisman formation that was more than 100 feet wide, more than 10 cold chains wrapped around an interceptor 7 to 8 times and tied him up. More than a dozen deer chasers surrounded him, all of them looking at the captured enemy with excitement. We've made a contribution. Haha. It was definitely worth celebrating to be able to defeat an interceptor in the deer chaser competition. However, before he could finish celebrating, a towering purple flame rose from the forest in all directions without any warning. The purple flames transformed into a wall of fire that did not allow even a drop of water to pass through, directly sealing the dozen or so deer chasers and the captured obstructors within. My apologies, but all of your keys are mine. A young figure shrouded in demonic purple light walked out of the purple flames. His aura was shocking, like that of a fiend god. Everyone's pupils trembled and their faces were filled with shock. Chapter 1146. Day and night alternated, and the stars moved. The curtain of night that enveloped the world was like a receding black tide, and a thin layer of mist rose from the mountain forest in the early morning. Drops of crystal-clear dew hung between the branches and leaves. Boom, accompanied by a heavy impact, the noisy swamp forest that had been noisy for almost an entire night gradually quietened down. Several trees that had been smashed to pieces fell to the ground, and the rocks on the ground cracked. A long drag mark stretched for nearly 100 meters. At the end of the drag mark, a battered and exhausted figure sat powerlessly on the ground. A pair of eyes filled with fear and shock looked at the young and handsome face in front of him. Who are you? Just now, as a blocker, he saw a lone deer chaser. Just when he thought that the other party had become a fish on the chopping board and was at his mercy, he, who was at the second stage of the Eternal Realm, couldn't even take one move from the other party. Qi Xing. Yang Rong? None of them. Apart from the 2 of them, there was also a hidden newcomer with unfathomable cultivation among the deer chasers. And this newcomer actually dared to openly hunt the deer chasers. You're out? Chu Hen calmly walked in front of the deer chasers and removed their disciple token without any hesitation. Then, he transferred the 20 star keys on the token into his own token, not leaving a single one behind. The deer chasers' eyes widened, and their lips quivered a few times. Finally, they loosened their clenched fists. You did it! My other companions, since yesterday, none of the deer chasers who had entered the swamp forest had returned. There was no news of any return either. At first, they thought that they had been delayed by other factors. Now, it seemed that those deer chasers who hadn't returned had already lost their ability to fight and were eliminated. Chu Hen didn't answer. He casually threw the empty token back to the deer chasers. Then, he raised his head, and his eyes that were as bright as stars looked at the gentle rays of the morning sun that shone through the leaves. The sky was bright. After an entire night of conflict, the final moment had finally arrived. Chu Hen glanced at the token in his hand. Under the two words, North Star, there was a green, 6 red and 4 silver vertical lines. 164 star keys. This was Chu Hen's harvest for nearly a day. As if his horizons were constantly broadened, Chu Hen's gains were constantly magnified. Next, it was time to head to the final destination. Outside the swamp forest, about 50 kilometers to the west, was a vast plain area. Further back was the area behind the Marshall Sec's Western Dome Peak. In the area behind the mountain, there were all kinds of fierce and powerful demonic beasts. Some disciples of the sects would occasionally go in to hunt demonic beasts, seize their demonic essence to fuse into weapons, concoct pills, and so on. Elephant Boat Station. This was a special building used to separate the two places and act as a dividing line. From afar, the elephant boat platform looked like a magnificent great wall. It was pointed at both ends and wide in the middle. Its shape was similar to an incomparably huge ship. In the center of the city wall, there stood a giant elephant statue that was hundreds of meters tall. The giant elephant statue raised its head and raised its trunk, facing the sky. A pair of curved tusks showed a sharp arc. The back of the giant elephant statue was quite wide. There was an imposing stargazing platform set up on it. At this moment, a young figure with an extraordinary aura was sitting cross-legged on the stargazing platform. His eyes were closed, and the rhythm of his breathing was in sync with the surrounding airflow, as if he was one with everything in the world. The man's clothes were gorgeous, showing off his aristocratic aura. About 2 inches below the left shoulder of his clothes, there was a pattern of the word Hong. This person was none other than the Shun Hong that everyone had been talking about before. As the strongest person among the obstructors, Shun Hong was unsurprisingly the one guarding the last checkpoint. On the city wall under the elephant boat platform, there were 2 young figures with the same extraordinary aura. The 2 of them were like protectors, guarding tightly under the stargazing platform. It's daybreak. It seems to be too quiet in the swamp forest. Indeed, a little, the 2 of them said in an indifferent tone. Although it was slightly unusual, the 2 of them were not worried at all. The reason was naturally Shun Hong, who was sitting alone on the elephant boat platform. With him guarding this last checkpoint, no one would be able to set foot on that high platform. Buzz. Suddenly, Shun Hong, who was sitting on the platform, suddenly opened his eyes. 2 sharp rays of light shot out from his eyes. Whoosh! At the same time, a figure was flying over from the direction of the swamp forest. It's Zhua Hao. One of the people on the city wall said in a deep voice. Whoosh! The young man called Zhua Hao flashed through the sky, and then he flashed down onto the city tower below elephant boat platform. Senior brother Shun Hong. Zhua Hao's eyes were deep, and his expression was slightly cold as he said to Shun Hong on the platform, "The situation is a little unexpected. There's no news from our people." The 2 people beside him could not help but look at each other when they heard this. This year's batch of rookies is so strong? Zhua Hao nodded and said with a solemn expression, "It's indeed a little troublesome. It's better for the 3 of us to carry out an ambush. Senior brother Shun Hong, please continue guarding here." The other 2 people looked at Shun Hong, who was on the platform with questioning eyes. However, Shun Hong's expression did not change at all. Then, he said indifferently, "There's no need, they're already here, already here." As soon as he finished speaking, a majestic force that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas surged from the direction of the swamp forest like a torrent. The earth trembled and the sky changed color. Billowing flames covered the sky and covered the earth. More than 20 figures with extraordinary auras burst out with a powerful force that was like a meteorite. They were like an unstoppable flood as they charged straight for the great wall of the elephant boat platform. Humph, they're quite fast. One of the people beside Zhua Hao said coldly. In the face of those piercingly cold figures, the four people on the city tower did not show any fear. Charge! Seize the elephant boat platform! Endless murderous auras pounced on the elephant boat platform. Looking at this scene, Shen Hong, who was on the platform, smiled frivolously. The three of you guard below the platform. Don't let anyone get on the elephant boat platform. Yes, senior brother Shen Hong. Zhua Hao and the other two nodded solemnly. As soon as he finished speaking, Shen Hong instantly left an afterimage in his original position, and his body immediately flashed a few miles away. It's Shen Hong. Everyone's expression changed. They did not expect Shen Hong to directly make a move. Facing more than 20 new disciples with extraordinary power, Shen Hong alone displayed the bravery of an army that could not be defeated by 10,000 men. Humph, to be able to get here, it's your ability, but Shen Hong's face raised a disdainful arc. It can only be here. Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, a huge aura that was comparable to a mountain directly gushed out from his body. Everyone's aura fiercely collided with the opponent's aura. Two monstrous auras surged and intersected, like the convergence of mountains and rivers, bursting out tens of thousands of true essence waves. The sky trembled, and a layer of flowing red aura pervaded Shen Hong's body. With one hand clenched, a fierce energy wave emitted a power that could flatten mountains and rivers. Heaven's spreading palm. Buzz. The vast pressure poured down like a tide. Shen Hong raised one hand, and a huge palm print that seemed to be solid blasted towards the crowd. Retreat. Anxious cries of alarm came from the crowd. Everyone immediately scattered and retreated to the side. The huge palm print was like the hand of a Buddha, whistling through the crowd. Although the crowd's reaction was already very fast, there were still a few people who were hit by this fierce force. Bang, bang, bang. The true essence shields and armors of the people who were hit by the huge palm completely shattered. As if they had been hit by a meteorite, their internal organs were displaced, their blood and chi surged, and they were sent flying while spitting out mouthfuls of blood. Damn it! Don't take Shen Hong's attack head-on. His raging evolution holy body bloodline limit ignores any defense. Hee, looks like you know quite a lot. Shen Hong smiled lightly, and he waved his hand through the air, using the capturing dragon stance. Buzz! Accompanied by an extremely powerful energy wave, a huge palm once again grabbed towards the scattered crowd. At the same time, a ferocious fireball swept across the sky like a meteorite, creating a solid fiery cyclone in the air, and then directly collided with the huge capturing dragon palm. Boom! The earth-shattering heavenly star, the crimson fireball firmly collided with the huge palm, and a chaotic and majestic shock wave instantly exploded between the heavens and the earth. Powerful shock waves swept across the ground, kicking up a thick layer of dust. The collision of the ancient eternity realm power was earth-shattering. The airflow that spread in all directions was like a hurricane, wreaking havoc. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the huge palm was directly penetrated by the fireball, and it exploded into thousands of light cyclones. It's senior brother Yang Rong. Someone in the crowd exclaimed in surprise. Whoosh! In an instant, the crimson fireball bloomed like a lotus, and an extraordinary young figure appeared in front of everyone's eyes. I am Yang Rong, and I would like to seek guidance from senior brother Shen Hong. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, huge trees suddenly sprang up from the ground below. The lush trees were like a dragon that grew endlessly, and their roots directly rose into the sky. The strong branches that constantly branched out formed a huge net, and quickly covered the sky. I am Zhao Qingyi, and I would like to seek guidance from senior brother Shen Hong.